Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things Eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 37 of the podcast, where we're going to be doing a not so extensive, but still pretty extensive, Flame of Xulta set review, except this time we're doing the legendaries and rares. So for those of you that are still alive and kicking, despite putting up with the entire common and uncommon set review, welcome back. Appreciate you. For those just tuning in, once again, if you are into limited and want to take the entire set into context, then by all means check out our previous episodes. Of note as well, episode 35, where I go over the mechanics of Flame of Xulta. That way, to save you a little time, and myself in this podcast will go ahead and I will explain the mechanics one time very briefly the first time we come up on them, and then we will move on. So definitely check that out. Once again, episode 36 being the common and uncommon, and episode 35 being the mechanics reviews of Set of Xulta, or Flames of Xulta. I apologize. A couple of things I want to mention before we dive right into it is the YouTube channel. That's right, Eternal Journey, or EJthePodcast on YouTube. You can check us out there, where I have all kinds of fantastic and not so fantastic content for your consumption. We have draft videos. We have the video version of this podcast if you are listening to it and want to see the actual cards on the screen. You can go check it out on the YouTube, as well as sealed videos. And once the ECQ season starts again, I will be doing tournament reports there as well, for those of you people that like getting masters ranked in both format. Another thing I want to mention is the cube draft. That's right, I'm trying to bring cube drafting to Eternal. Long story short, for those of you that don't know what cube drafting is, for this specific format, there is a set that I created, or a cube on my own, using the all cards available in Eternal. And you show up at my stream on Sunday, I will open up 5 curated packs, so 5 12 card packs on stream for everyone to choose from. And then from your picks, you make a 75 card deck, mainly because of the fact that we aren't able to challenge each other with 45 card decks. So yeah, come check it out, give it a shot. There is no rarity restriction in the packs unless I design a specific cube for that. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of power, really interesting decks. I definitely think you guys should check it out. If you're kind of intimidated, don't want to try it your first time, definitely tune into the stream and just watch other people. I do televise the entire thing. And lastly, of course, to do that, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. All right, that's it for our housekeeping. So, subscribers shoutouts of this week. Want to give a big thank you and welcome to the Jedi Order, Redbeard84 and Depopodopolis. Thank you so much, guys, for the subscriptions. Really appreciate that. You two actually allowed us to unlock the next emote. That's right. So Facepalming Yoda is in pending mode right now on Twitch. So hopefully we'll get that up. And I want to thank all the resubs that came out. Thank you guys so much. Because of you, we have our Porg emote. That's right. The lovable and annoying Star Wars penguins. We have those. So definitely check it out. Give another shout out to Sunnyvale, Kalibovich, and Cassandrith, all 3 phenomenal limited and constructed streamers on for Eternal. They recently did a draft summit, so definitely check that out. It was hosted by Cassandrith, so go to his page and check out for the VOD there. But it was a great discussion between the 3 of them, talking about the state of limited with Flames of Xulta. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, as well as throwing them follows. I want to give a shout out to the Misplay Podcast, both Jason and Mark. Great guys on there. They are part of the Content Creator Showdown, as well as just putting on great all-around entertainment and content for Eternal. Interesting of note, recently they did a survey, and their latest podcast, they went ahead and completely broke down their results of that survey. So I definitely think you should check it out. And lastly on the shout out list is Farming Eternal. That's right, Barefoot Farmer, Patumaro, and Ben Gracier. Those guys do a phenomenal job there. They are 100% focused, limited focused podcast. Definitely check them out. They are, after the survey, the most popular and successful podcast for Eternal. So definitely give them a shout, give them a follow, tune into them. And of course, if you are drafting Get 7 Wins, export that list to Eternal Warcry and send it on over to Farming Eternal so they can add that to their 7-win spreadsheet, and of course continue number crunching for all of our enjoyment. That's it, guys. That does it for the housekeeping, which means we're going to go into our pack one, pick one, and let's crack one open here. I really need to get the sound effect. I typically open these up on my account and just screenshot them for later. So, starting off Flame of Xulta, we have Swaying Sea Kieran. This is the 2/4 Kieran at common for 3 and a time. Okay, so Watch Vominar did some work. This thing's the same. It has Muster, create and draw a 1/1 Humbug with flying. Sadly, we've already identified the Muster is not really something that's well supported, so you're pretty much just looking at this for the 2/4 for 3, which is 100% serviceable. So right now we're fine with that. Next up, we have Chant to Grodov. This is the each unit in your hand gets a +1/+1 and Overwhelm at slow speed for 2 and a time. Yeah, I'm low on this card. It's great when you play it on turn 2 and you have maybe 4 or 5 units in your hand, but other than that, subpar. Metal, we have another time fast spell at common here, 1 at a time. Give one of your units invulnerable to damage this turn. This card is good. It's surprisingly better than it seems on the surface, mainly because of stuff that it shuts off mastery triggers and things like that, and lifesteal. So it's done some work, and the fact that it's 1 power proves that it's easy to leave up. Next up, we have Warbrush Oni. This is a 2/1 Oni at common for 2 and a red. Summon each unit and weapon in your hand gets a +1 attack. So slightly different than Chant of Grodov that we just covered, but I actually think significantly better because of 2 things. 1, it also hits weapons, so it increases the likelihood of it having targets in your hand. And 2, it is a body. So playing on turn 2 is ideal, but when you draw it late game, you still have a body attached to it. So just playing that is fine as well. That being said, I don't think it's quite good enough to take out Swaying Sea Kieran, so that's still the pick. Thunderclaw Raven, 2/1 bird at common for 3 and a blue or primal, has flying, and mastery 6, draw a curse of your choice from your deck. It is a tutor ability, but once again, we've discussed earlier in the previous set or reviews or episodes that X1s are quite common and thus easily to handle. So Thunderclaw is not really a first pick for me. We have Marsh Dragon. This is a 3/1 Nightmare Dragon at common for 5 and a shadow. It has flying. Summon, you may sacrifice another unit to gain health equal to the number of units in your void, and give Marsh Dragon that much health. So Marsh Dragon has proven to be deceptively good. I think anywhere with 3, let's say 2 units in the void, you play this, you sack that unit to it, it will be 3 units in the void, so it comes into the 3/4, and you gain 4 life, or 3 life. That doesn't seem that bad, and obviously late game when you've traded off some things and now this thing's coming down as a 3/7, it's extremely powerful, but not a first pick because you really don't know if you're in that sack deck, and it is a 5-cost spell. Moving on, we have Cruelty. This is the slow spell at common for 3 and a primal. Play Inferiority Complex on an enemy unit, which gives a unit Reckless, and Decimate, deal 2 damage to it. Yeah, we're off of this. And Sunset Priest is a 3/3 elf cultist at common for 3 and a shadow. Summon, each player discards the top 3 cards of their deck. It's a 3/3 for 3 on baseline. Helps mill your opponent. Helps mill you for those things that matter. Overall, Sunset Priest has not really impressed me, so I try not to play it if I can. So yeah, right now at our common, Swaying Sea Kieran is the 1, the 2/4. Moving into our uncommons, we have Recano Insignia, so not necessary to take it early, so that's a pass. We have Snowstorm Druid. This is a 1/1 Druid at uncommon, once again, for 1 and a primal, has flying, and then summon, you gain Aegis. Muster, stun an enemy unit. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, granted, there's curses running around and cursed relics, so face Aegis could be somewhat important, but still a 1/1 flyer is, for 1, is not that impressive, so I'm off of it. And then finally, our last uncommon is Mistrust. This is a cursed relic for 4 and a green, or 4 and a justice. When the cursed player plays a unit, sacrifice Mistrust to play two 3/2 paladins. Mistrust is absolutely great. Obviously, in limited, most of the units or things that are card types that are going to be played from both players are going to be units, so this has a high chance of being triggered. And of course, even though you are technically breaking even on power to stats, because a 3/2 paladin is going to be 2 costs, so you're paying 4 for double that, you are only spending 1 card to do it, and so you're somewhat getting up on cards on your opponent. Plus, it also triggers, curse synergies as well. I think Mistrust is great. That is enough to surpass Swaying Sea Kieran, so Mistrust it is. And our rare is Waylay. This is a slow spell for 3 shadow. The enemy player discards each copy of a unit or site of your choice from their deck. Decimate, steal the enemy player's void. So technically in limited, it's probably going to end up being a 1-for-1 because it does not show you the number of cards that they have. They just show you the card. So for all intents and purposes, it is a 1-for-1. That being said, you could technically take a peek at your opponent's entire deck and remove their bomb, should they have it, or a card that you just can't deal with. But it still also could be card disadvantage because of the fact that you could be taking a card out of their deck and not their hand. So you're losing a card from your hand for a card that they may not even have drawn over the course of the game. So I don't think it's strong enough to take the case over Mistrust. So pack one, pick one this week. Mistrust is our pick. All right, guys, once again, if you want, you can check this out on YouTube, see the actual cards on your screen. But that's going to do it for a pack one, pick one, which means we're going into our set review for the legendaries and rares of Flame of Xulta. But first things first, I want to go ahead and cover the grading scale so you have an understanding, even despite on whether I cover specific details about cards. Say a card is awesome, say a card is horrible, you still understand what value you should attempt to draft it at. So starting off with our A's, these are bombs. These are cards that win you on the spot or potentially bring you back when you are behind. Cards like Minotaur Plate Maker and Rost the Walking Glacier fit this category, where when they come down they absolutely stabilize you, or once again they are able to break board stalls. So those are our A's. Our B's are cards that pull you towards a specific color, or the signs that like a specific color might be open, or just cards of high value or efficient removal. Cards that fit this bill are things like Retribution and Heretics Cannon. Those are your B's. C's are the pawns of limited, so to speak, or the meat and potatoes of your deck. This is what makes up the majority of any limited deck. These are the commons and things that fill up your curve. Such C's are things like Blurry Chaser and Kasul Recruit. D's are cards, they're the last playable cards you need to, that you really don't want to place them into your deck, but it's perfectly okay playing them if you lack playables and just need to fill out your curve. Cards like Gorgon Cutthroat and Guns Blazing. And we have our F's. F's are cards that are stone cold unplayable. You absolutely do not want to play these or put these in your deck in any form or fashion. They are most likely constructed playables or just skill check cards like Sudden Stampede and Death Pit. And finally, we have Build-Arounds. Build-Arounds are a modified grade. These are cards that on their own typically are not very good and not playable, but if you are able to take them early and take subsequent picks to accommodate the synergies that they offer, then they become significantly better. Cards like Ancient Clock Tower and Svetya's Sanctum are cards that come to mind when you think of Build-Arounds. But all right, guys, that is going to do it for our grading scale, so hopefully that will help you. And with that, let's go ahead and lead right into our legendary and rare set review. As usual, we'll start off with the neutral or colorless cycle, and there is a cycle of power that came out that is called Emblems. These are each named after their respective city, state, or I should say deity that I think these factions fall under. So it's Emblem of Shavka, the fire one, Emblem of Grodov, the time one, Emblem of Kodash, the justice, Emblem of Linray, primal, and Shadow's Emblem of Makar. Each one will give you an influence of their respective color, and you have to take 1 damage. That's it. So plain and simple, they're 1 power, undepleted for 1 damage. Now, they all have additional text, which they all have additional text in the form of decimate. And if you have 3 influence of the respective faction, so obviously the fire one needs 3 fire, time needs 3 time, create and draw a unit and of a specific type stature. So what we're talking about is that you will gain the influence for that turn. So if you're at 3, you will go up to 4. Then you decimate, you will keep that 4th power for that turn, but you will go back down to 3. So at the end of your turn, you will go down to 3 maximum power. And that goes all the way up and down the chain, right? You can make this whenever, you can decimate whenever you want, as long as you have triple of the respective colors. The fire makes a 3/3 ash elemental with overwhelm. Time makes a 2/2 earth elemental with exalted. Justice makes a 2/1 wind elemental with flying. Primal makes a 3/1 ice elemental with aegis. And Shadow makes a 2/2 death elemental with deadly. Big surprise there, super creative. Regardless, I think these are actually quite strong. The reason why I say this is because A, it is a 2-color format, so achieving 3 influence of a specific color doesn't take that long. B, if you guys remember the tactics from the previous formats, anytime you are able to add an additional playable card to your deck or spell or something that affects the board without costing yourself a slot, you are getting ahead on cards, right? And so the standards were depleted power, but once you achieved 5 power, they transmuted into very good combat tricks. I think most of them were actually really good. And what made them better is the fact that they didn't cost you a slot in your deck. You can add them, essentially giving yourself additional playables. So the emblems play very similar to that, where when you need the power, you will easily play the power. And late game, when you draw them and you already have more than enough power, you can decimate to turn them into a reasonable unit. I think it's probably between the Shadow and Justice one as far as being the most useful, and then probably I would say the Primal one, the 3/1 Aegis, being the least useful, just because of the fact that in limited, most of the time removal is limited, and this thing only having 1 health means it trades off fairly low, versus the deadly one can trade up, and the flying one has evasion. And the next one in the middle would probably be the 2/2 exalted from time. And then a 3/3 overwhelm does some work, but it's nothing to gawk at. Either way, they're all free cards essentially if you are drawing them late and don't need power. So I think these are all pretty solid. I would actually probably put these guys at about a B minus. I think it's good. I think they're good. Once again, they aren't as game breaking as the combat tricks were, but they're still getting you additional unit when you need it, and it helps you avoid flooding out. So that's the emblems, guys, which means we're going to go, and those are the only neutral cards as far as on the rarity, rare and legendary. That means we're going to go into our multi-faction cards, because why not, right? And so to kick off our multi-faction, we are going with Rambha Arena Showman. Rambha Arena Showman seems to be already making some waves in constructed, but this is limited, so we are going to go over it in a different light, but I still think it is valuable. So Rambha Arena Showman is hold on one second, apologize, need to adjust it for, there we go, for my YouTubers. It is a 4/4 giant at rare for 3 fire time. So it is a 3-drop, but requires 4 influence. Like I said, it's a 4/4, and then the rules text says, when Rambha hits the enemy player, reduce the cost of each card in your hand by 1. So a 4/4 for 3 is already a great body, and if it is able to connect, which if by chance you are able to get it down on turn 3, I believe it's going to in limited, it will reduce the cost of everything in your hand by 1. Spells, weapons, units. So it is ramp in that form or fashion. I like this card, but there is more. If you draw this late game and the 4/4 gets outclassed, you may pay 7 to play the top card of your deck. That's right, you just straight up play it. Done deal. Doesn't matter if the top card costs 12 or if it's a power, you will play it. You do not get to see what the top card is. You are rolling the dice, and typically 7 power does take up your turn. But this is quite powerful. I think it's a relevant body. If it connects, it provides a legitimate bonus. And late game, it's a power sink. I think Rambha Arena Showman is great. I actually like him. I'm actually going to put him at an A. And the reason being is because, like I said, he's great in every phase of the game. If you drop him on turn 3, you're rocking it. If he manages connect, he makes your hand cheaper, so you're able to play more things. And now your opponent isn't able to play around combat tricks correctly because, you know, they might think, okay, this card costs, for example, draw strength. It would make a draw strength free. So how are they going to play around that? And then obviously, like I said, late game. Yeah, I think Rambha Arena Showman, despite having strict influence restrictions or requirements, I do think that you're able to play it at maybe not on 3, but you're still able to play it consistently in a 2-color format. So Rambha Showman, you get an A. Moving along, we have Cheering Section. This is a relic at rare for 4 fire time. When a player discards 1 or more cards, play a Totemite. Once per turn, you may sacrifice any number of Totemites to get 1 power this turn for each. So it's weird, right? Because typically the mill colors right now are, they are Zenon, but the majority of self-mill is coming from Shadow, yet this is a Praxis thing. And then, I get it because there's Totemites and you can sacrifice like the Tota and things like that. But getting 1 additional power at that cost in limited, I don't really feel like you're really going to capitalize on getting max advantage from this. And of note, it is whenever they discard 1 or more cards. So it's not like you melee somebody and then you get 6 0/1s. You actually still get 1. Yeah, Cheering Section is more like some kind of constructed build around playable. So I'm just going to give it an F. Moving right along, not spending too much time on that, we have one of the other staples of the format and signpost. We have Kairos Grand Champion. This guy is a house. This guy is a 12/12 giant at legendary for 9 power. That's right. Triple fire, triple time influence. This guy requires so much, but once again, he gives you a payoff. A, he's a 12/12. B, he gives you 6 additional power, 6 maximum power. So somehow, if you're at 9 and you're able to play this dude, somehow you'll be at 15 after that. Like you needed any more power in limited. When you play another unit, it deals its attack and damage to an enemy. That's any enemy, so it can go to the face or it can go to another unit. And summon, draw cards equal to the highest attack amongst your other units. Of note, it is other, so it's not going to automatically draw 12. But for example, should you have, let's say, a Grodov's favored in play, you will draw 6 cards off of this guy and have 6 additional power. So this guy is a house, like straight up. He's amazing, and 9 out of 10 times he is going to win you the game when he comes down one way or another, unless they just have like the cut ties sitting in their hand for him. That being said, 9 is a lot. That also being said, my experiences in this format, so it's a little bit beneficial of doing the set review a little later than usual, just because of the fact that I have a slight heads up on the format. This format could potentially slow down. I have played in ways of leading to a lot of board states, and that does include a variance of time, because you're able to silence all the flyers and gum up the board with huge units to get up to Kairos. So I don't think he's completely unplayable at 9. That being said, you do have to adjust your deck to accommodate him. So as much as I want, I think it's as much as I want to give him an A, I really do. Like, the card itself is amazing. Just, I don't know how many times you're going to get to 9 in this format, especially with Decimate. So believe it or not, yeah, I'm going to just give him a B+. I think he is definitely a card that if you can take early and adjust your deck, take things like Trailmakers and the 0/3 that we talked about last episode that gives you additional power when Cultist dies, I think you can get up. Well, shoot, actually, that's a thing now that I think about it. Yeah, okay. So if you take him in pack 4, I don't think you're going to be able to play him. But if you're able to take him in pack 1, pick 1 or pick 2, and you can accommodate them, then I think he shoots up to an A. That being said, though, I think he's probably going to sit closer to a B or B+. So Kairos, sadly, he will win the game when he comes down. I promise. It's just so good, but yeah, that 9 casting cost, sometimes you're not going to live to make it there, especially if your opponent has flyers and stuff. So Kairos, you get a B+, brother. All right, moving right along, we have Conspicious Traveler. I like this card a lot. I've been brewing Constructed Armory with this card. This card seems exciting to me. It is a 3/4 gunslinger at rare for 4 fire justice. And it reads, at the end of your turn, your relic weapon gets a +1 attack. Period. Done deal permanently. Summon, you gain 3 armor, so incidental life gain, and mastery 6. So once again, for those of you, since it is our first instance of mastery, whenever a unit deals mastery or X amount of damage, where it is the mastery number, you get an effect. So for this one is mastery 6, whenever it deals 6 damage, you gain an additional 6 armor. So yeah, this card seems really solid. That being said, I am gonna honestly, probably it's still just honestly, it's just a C+. And I say that because of the fact that the 3/4 for 4 is serviceable. It's solid. It'll do some work, but it's not game breaking. The relic addition, the +1 to your relic weapon, is relevant, but you also have to have a relic in play. Of note, it happens at the end of your turn, which is really nice. So you don't have to have that weird interaction where you hope it survives till the beginning of your next turn to get the bonus. If you have a weapon in play and you drop this, you'll get it. If you have this in play and then you play your weapon, it will get the bonus at least once before it dies. Moving, like, for example, if you have the trying to think, the 3/4 mace, it will become a 4/4 at the end of the turn. And then it is armor, but armor is still life gain. So the fact that you get incidental life gain off of a unit that you're already happy playing is always a bonus. So yeah, Conspicious Traveler, you're a C+. I like it. That being said, it doesn't pull me into Rakano in any form or fashion. It's not that powerful. Next up, we have Gatekeepers Halberd. This is a +4/+4 weapon at rare for 4 fire, justice. And Spellcraft 2, Bar the Gates. And Bar the Gates reads, choose a non-power card from the enemy player's hand. They can't play cards with that name for 3 turns. So, for all intents and purposes, in limited, you're pretty much just shutting down that one card that's in their hand, but sometimes it's relevant. If you just finished placing a 4 cost +4/+4 weapon on your flyer, last thing you want to happen is to have it immediately removed the next turn. So Bar the Gates gives you that option of giving you at least 3 turns where you're able to do something with this unit. Look at their hand, you see the cut dies or you see the fell ritual, and you're able to like, yep, you are not playing that. Or if they have a bomb, if you need the race, and you look and like, oh man, they were going to drop another Grodov's Favored next turn. Yep, you can't play Grodov's Favored. So I like this card. I think it's solid. It's giving a +4/+4 to just about any unit, especially a unit with evasion or lifesteal, is huge. And the fact that it has the option of protecting itself for 6, and 6 is very doable. I like Gatekeepers Halberd. That being said, it is pretty bad if you don't have any units. If you're behind, it's able to give you a big blocker, so that's relevant. Obviously, if you're ahead, you can continue beating, and it could potentially break parity if you put this on a unit that just makes it way larger than everything else. I like Gatekeepers Halberd. I'll give it a B. I think the downside of it, the only downside about it, is not having a unit. And in a pinch, you can play it for 4, and 4/4 for 4 is plenty good in any game. Yeah, I like Gatekeepers Halberd. I'll give it a B. Next up, we have another outlier. We have Arujin, Conflict Within. This is a 6/6 Oni at Legendary. She is 6 cost and triple fire, triple justice. So somewhat of a counterpart to Kairos, even though it's same influence but half the cost and stats. Sort of, not really. 9 and 6 are, but that goes to show you, like, it might as well be. 6 and 9 are that far apart and limited for those of you that are new. She reads, exalted while you have another Oni, which is more than accessible in this format. I think there's plenty of Onis, especially if you are in Rakano. You're going to see Onis even if you're not trying to grab them up. And summon, kill an enemy unit with fewer battle skills than your Oni have. So I have not. I've seen this played against me twice, and both times it didn't kill anything. So it needs to have fewer battle skills than your Oni have. So in most cases, your Oni, to include her, notice she has Exalted. That's going to give you 1, right? So you need to kill something that has no battle skills. Think about how often Fall Short has removed the unit or just stayed in your hand. So Rujin Conflict Within, I think, is super medium. 6 for 6 is a good amount of stats, especially if she's going to be Exalted, which in most cases she is going to. So I think she's fine. I think she's a C. She is fighting in the same slot, pseudo, as Grodo's Favored. 1 less stat, but way easier to play, and a sounds effect, which is almost always relevant. So yeah, that puts it into context. So I'll give Rujin Conflict Within a C because the Exalted and a 6 for 6 is fine. So yeah. Moving on, we have Gemenon. I like Gemenon. Sounds like Agamemnon. There we go. So Gemenon, the double helix. Interesting. It is a 7/10 mage at legendary for 6, triple fire, triple primal. All right, so here's the hero of this faction for Skycrag. Gemenon's mastery count all damage. All the damage is counted towards this guy's mastery, right? So that means blocks, attacks, face burns, burn spells, all the good stuff. Weapon hits, attacks. Mastery 100. Mastery 100. So 100 damage has to be dealt. Deal 100 damage to the enemy player. Yeah, I really don't see that being a thing in limited. So long story short, are we happy about playing a 7/10 for 6? And yeah, I think that's fine. That's going to block just about everything. And if you slap any kind of weapon on this guy, I'm pretty sure he's able, even on his own, 10 power or 10 health is a lot. Once again, in 2 colors, you may or may not play him on 6, but there's a good chance you're still going to play him on 7 or 8. I think that's still serviceable. It's definitely going to roadblock. If you're behind, it's definitely going to roadblock your opponent's attacks. It could be big enough to break parity. Has no evasion. It's literally just a big unit. So, think it's somewhat interchangeable. Probably a C+, honestly. I'm not thrilled about this card. It's a big guy. There's no doubt about it, but you know, there's deadly in the format. You can double block, things like that. So, and like I said, the mastery is not going to come into play. So Gemenon, you get a C+, because it is still a big unit. Gemenon's Berserker is a 4/4 warrior at rare for 5 fire, primal. It has Aegis, it has Berserk. Great, awesome, I'm sold. This card's awesome, but it has more text. When Gemenon's Berserker hits the enemy player, kill an enemy attachment. Yeah, this kills curses, this kills weapons, this kills weapon or relic weapons, this kills relics. This is in a format with spellcraft for muster. This is in a format where curses matter. Yeah, this card is great. I like this card quite a bit. 4/4 for 5 is just slightly under statted, but the fact that you're getting Aegis and Berserk means there's a good chance it's going to survive for at least 1 or 2 combats. So I like it a lot. Gemenon's Berserker, you're going to get a solid B from me. I think it's really good, and it's all the rules text on it is really solid. So it's kind of okay. You're paying 4/4 for 4, and then you're paying 1 to get Aegis, Berserk, and the ability to incidentally destroy weapons and curses and stuff. Yeah, I like it. I like Berserker a lot. So you're going to get a solid B. It could play out in like the A range, but I don't think so because it's still just a 4/4 that gets negated by at least 3 of the big units in the format, but still. All right, moving along, we have Blood Sun Staff. This is a +2/+2 weapon at rare for 3 fire primal. It has quick draw. So +2/+2 and quick draw is pretty solid combination. I like that. Even for 3, it's good. So efficient so far. When the wielder attacks, your spells deal +1 damage this turn. Meh. Kind of medium. I mean, don't get me wrong. The +2/+2 and quick draw does make it to where the unit you attach this to will get to attack, and attack quite often, I feel like, especially if it's a big beater or a flyer. The +1 damage, it's somewhat relevant, right? There's about 3 relevant spells in the format. I think that's a little less exciting, but I do think it is a solid weapon without that text line. So with that, I'm going to give Bloodstone Staff a B. I think it's good. I really do. I think the +2 attack and quick draw, if we remember Blurry Chaser going to a 3/1 would get in there all the time. Recruit would get in there. I forgot what it's called now. Quick draw or something. Recruit, the Oni one. It would just get in there. Like, I mean, so this can turn. I mean, worst case scenario, you're slapping this on, let's say, the 2/1 flyers, right? You have a 4/3 quick draw flyer. Like, that's gonna get in there. No, very few things are gonna be able to tussle with that. You slap this on the Mandrake, right? I can't believe I forget the 7/5 Mandrake. Now all of a sudden that thing's a 9/7 quick draw. Yeah, with Overwhelm. Yeah, Bloodstone Staff is good. I like it. Obviously, when you're behind, it's not as good because quick draw doesn't do anything, and it is a +2/+2. So, but once again, I think all the upsides on it are pretty relevant. So I like it. I'm gonna give it a B. I think it's a B. Next up, we have Cremate. Cremate is a fast spell at rare for 4 Fire, Primal. This is a kill, and once again, it's a fast spell that reads, kill a unit or site. It gets void bound. Yeah, this card is awesome. This card is an A. If you are anywhere near being able to play this card, you should take it because it is just premium removal in this removal light format. 4 cost for a removal spell is about par for a course nowadays, but the fact that it also takes out sites means that, like, it gives you the additional bonus to battle against other people's random rares, and it gets void bound. That is so huge right now with things like Immortalized being in the format. Like, you really want to make sure things stay dead when you kill them. Yes, there is an influence requirement that is kind of tough, so there's only really one deck. You're not really splashing this that's going to play this, but if you're able to take it, take it. Cremate is an A. This is the premier removal spell for the format. I feel like it just kills everything in fast speed, or at fast speed. So yeah, Cremate, you get an A. Moving on, we have Cruel Wyvarch. That word always gets me. Wyvarch? I think it's Wyvarch. Wyvarch. I think I heard someone say Wyvarch. Anywho, it is a nightmare dragon and a scary looking one too. Love the artwork on this. I want to know what it looks like in premium. Cruel Wyvarch is a nightmare dragon at rare. It is 6/6 and it is for 7 fire primal, or correction, 7 fire shadow. So it has flying. So 6/6 flyer for 7 seems good, seems serviceable. When Cruel Wyvarch hits the enemy player, they sacrifice a unit of their choice. So removal spell on a stick. Of note, it is their choice. So if they have like some random 1/1 cultist or 2/2s running around, that's what's going to bite the bullet. But you're still getting a card for free kind of out of them. And eventually there might be a board state where they only have 1 or 2 guys that are gumming up the board because they're big, so you can't attack. You get in with this thing, he has to sack, or they have to stack one of them. Yeah, I like it. I think it's mighty serviceable. 7 is a lot though. I'm not going to lie, 7 is a lot. Once again, we're pushing into that range for those of you that have played a lot Unlimited. There is a big gap between 5 and 6 power, and then even bigger for 6 to 7 power. So it's going to take you some time to get there. You are looking at something like a board stall, or if you two were aggressively trading units. So Cruel Wyvarch, I think it's going to end up being like a B+. I think it's a really good card. Fire and Shadow surprisingly has some abilities to slow down the game with things like Marsh Dragon and the Cindermaw Toda. So I think you can get there. This card is strong. I'm still going to give it, like I said, a B+ because of the 7. You know, call me conservative, but paying for expensive things is an actual cost. So Cruel Wyvarch, you're going to get a... No, you know what? A-. Because 7 you might still get to, and the fact that nothing's going to block this thing. This thing's a 6/6 flyer. Very few things are going to block it, and you're going to get a removal spell out of it one way or another. Like if they don't want to lose a big unit, they're just going to chump block it, and you're going to get a unit out of it anyways. So yeah, Cruel Wyvarch, you get an A for me. I think you're worth A-. We'll go A-. Okay, and finally in the Stone Scar cycle, we have Voprex, Hope's End. This is the front runner or face of the format, if you will. This is a Nightmare Dragon at Legendary. It is an 8/8 for 8. Triple fire, triple shadow. It has flying, it has overwhelm. So okay, yeah, sure, that's awesome. Summon, the enemy player must choose one of their units for each different name amongst your dragons. So right off the bat, you get one because Voprex is a dragon. Then let's say if you had a Marsh Dragon in play, now your opponent has to choose 2. Exhaust those units. Okay, so exhaust 1 baseline, exhaust, let's say 3. Let's say you have 3 dragons to play, exhaust 3 is top. Steal them while you have Voprex. What? Yeah, okay. So if somehow you've managed to make it to 8 power, which of course probably presumes a board state. So let's say you're going to have at least one other dragon, right? This thing is going to exhaust those units and then you steal them. And the reason why I exhaust them first is so you can't steal them and attack with them right away. It's not like a falter effect, so to speak, or a madness effect. You are stealing them semi-permanently. I say that because if they are able to remove Voprex, which is highly unlikely and limited unless, once again, they've been sandbagging that cut ties, you're going to keep them. You're going to keep those units until the game ends. So baseline, you get an 8/8 flyer with overwhelm, which is absolutely phenomenal stats. Granted, once again, 8 is a lot. Let's see, different units use much dragons, and then once again, you get 1 unit, you steal their best unit. It doesn't matter, it doesn't care anything except the fact that you have a dragon. So you can take, let's say 2. Your average here is going to be 2. You're going to have 1 other dragon in play. If you're in Stone Scar and you've managed to come up the board, presumably something like a Cinder Drake or a Cinder Dragon or a Marsh Dragon. And then you steal 2 of their units that now they can't block. You have them so you can attack with them, or you're on defense, or you can block with them, and you have Voprex to fly over in the air. Yeah, Voprex is awesome. Voprex can stabilize you when you're behind, can easily break a parity. Obviously in development it's absolutely horrible because you're nowhere near 8 power, and then when you're ahead it's just 1 more. So Voprex is great, and I'm a little hard pressed. I think it still end up going to be a B+, man. That 8 is a lot. And the thing about Voprex over Kairos is, 1, Kairos is at 12/12, but he doesn't have overwhelm and he's on the ground, so he can be chump blocked. Voprex cannot be chump blocked. Actually, what am I kidding? Yeah, that's fine. It's that cost though, man. That cost is really what's getting me. I think I'm just going to give him a B+. The reason being is I know he's going to win the game. He's going to. When Voprex comes down, unless they have the removal spell that turn, Voprex is going to win the game. I just don't know how often you're going to get to 8, guys. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Voprex. These are tough, man. I gotta say, these bigger units are definitely tough to gauge, for sure. All right, moving along to our Combray cycle, if you will. This is Kirin Ascendant. This is a 1/3 Kirin at rare for 3 time justice. The artwork looks super cool. Love how the horns match the tail. And it's like a cat dragon, like a lion. Anywho, it has flying, has lifesteal. Sweet. Not the biggest things on a 1/3, but it's serviceable. Has some additional attacks. Has summon, kill an enemy attachment. I like that. That is actually, once again, relevant in a format full of curses and weapons. And mastery 4. So 4 damage, once again, +2/+2. So it becomes a 3/5 flyer with lifesteal. That's really good. It is in the colors that plays with the choice that gives +3/+3 and overwhelm. It has finest hour. We have high alert. We have draw strength. So there's a bunch of ways to trigger mastery on this thing right away and get a good solid block to also increase trigger lifesteal. And of course there is the kill attachment, which is relevant. So the question is, in most cases, if you would hold on to this to hopefully catch a good weapon like a Oni Warhorn, or take out a curse like, for example, in Flint Conscious. So yeah, this card's good. I like it. I think it's a B. I think this card is really good. If you get one, if you're able to trigger mastery, it's a 3/5 flyer with lifesteal. That's awesome in a race scenario. Awesome to gum up the board. Yeah, I like Kirin Ascendant a lot. I think it's quite it's not going to win you the game single-handedly, but I think its utility is quite powerful. It's flexible in multiple slots. I like it. It carries weapons very well itself. So yeah, Kirin Ascendant, you get a B. I think it's great. It needs a little help to win the game, so that's why I didn't earn the A. But yeah, Kirin Ascendant is a solid B. Shinra Speaks. This is kill all units, plain and simple. It is the harsh rule of the format. That's why I skipped right to it. It is a slow spell at rare for 5 time justice. So a little bit harder to cast than harsh rule, but still at the same pace. And it has additional clause of decimate, silence, and kill all units instead, which of course can come into play with reoccurring strategies and things like that. Maybe stuff that comes back out of the void. So the decimate is relevant, but primarily you're worried about the harsh rule effect. Pay 5, kill everything on the board. Yeah, this card's an A. And the reason why I say it is because you know it's in your deck. You know when you have it in your hand and when you can play around it, and your opponent does not. And in most cases, especially in this format, even with draw strength in the format, most people still run out all their units unless they think something's up. So as long as you're able to play a 2/2, maybe act like you're trying to gum up the board a little bit, and then sandbag the rest of your bigger units, you can really get something like a 2 for 5 out of this card. And of course, it is plain and simple. Kill all units, doesn't matter their stat lines. So that is absolutely phenomenal. So yes, Shinra Speaks is an A. It's a great card, even if it is symmetrical and hits both sides of the board. Yeah, Shinra Speaks, you're awesome. Moving along to Emry Dragonbane. Emry Dragonbane is a 6/6 Minotaur at Legendary for 6 triple time, triple justice. And I can't tell if his eyes are small, if he's squinting, or if his eyes are closed. Kind of hard to tell, to be completely honest with you. I think he might be drunk, maybe squinting. I don't know. Interesting. And I have it loaded up pretty big here on the screen. Anywho. All right. So Emry Dragonbane has a ton of rules text. First off, enemy dragons can't be played. So automatically hoses Stone Scar, and I guess a splash of Felon as well. Just straight up, like, none of your dragons, nope, they stay in your hand, you can't play them. Okay, narrow, but it's still on a 6/6, so that's fine, and it's extremely effective. I mean, it shuts down Voprex, so that's something. Summon, if any of your units have completed all of their mastery abilities, they get those effects 2 additional times. Then refresh their mastery. What? So if something has their mastery triggered already, right? Like, for example, if we go to a Kirin Ascendant and it is a 3/5, when you summon Emry, it will get 2 additional, right? Those effects 2 additional times. Yes. So then it gets a +4/+4 again, and for no good reason. Just dropping Emry does it. Then you get to refresh their mastery, so it can essentially get a 4th +2/+2. That seems pretty darn good, not gonna lie. Especially in a color, yet again, where it has a choice that fits that and has draw strength. I think that is quite doable. That seems pretty broken to me in most cases. Like, that's busted. Yeah, I like Emry. I like Emry quite a bit, actually. Of note, other than that, he is just a 6/6, so of course, looking at the downside to him, if you are not playing against a dragon deck and you haven't triggered ending masteries, he does absolutely nothing when he comes into play, and it's just a dull, boring, dumb 6/6 for 6. So there is the downside. And 6/6 obviously does trade with several commons in the format, so that's not very exciting. So still think his effect is extremely powerful. Like, even if you're able to do that on just one of your units, I think that just dramatically changes the board state. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give Emry an A-. Like, bottom line, worst case scenario of this, you're getting a 6/6 for 6. Seems okay, seems serviceable, and the upside is just, you have 2 units that triggered mastery already, right? Like, even commons. Let's say you're talking about the 1/4 stalwart, so it's a 3/6. You give it a +4/+4. That thing is now a 7/10 with vigilance, or I'm sorry, endurance. A 7/10 endurance. Like, that matches the legendary and Skycrag we talked about earlier, except it has endurance, so it's even better. That seems ridiculous. Yeah, Emry Dragonbane, you're gonna get an A- from the Jedi. I think the upside in the deck that you want to run is quite powerful. All right. And once again, mainly because of the fact that you also have triggers. It's stuff that you want to be doing anyways in the game, so you don't have to go out of your way. It's just gravy. Next up, we have Sodi's Spellshaper. This is a +1/+1 weapon at rare for 2-time primal, so Elysian. When the wielder hits the enemy player, draw a card. Yeah, these weapons are great. Being able to slap this on a flyer or a big unit that your opponent can't block, now they have to figure out whether they want chump block to deny you the card or just give you the card, is really solid. So +1/+1 is a little underwhelming, but you're only paying 2 for this, which is really serviceable. So I like it, but it has some additional text. It has Spellcraft 2. So when you play this weapon for 2, you may pay an additional 2 to play Equivocate. And Equivocate is a 2 power. I mean, it doesn't matter the speed because you have to play it off the weapon, but it bounces any unit into your opponent's hand. Let me confirm it's enemy unit. Hold on one second. I'm pretty sure it's enemy unit. I'm pretty sure you can't do your own units. Hold on. Put a unit into its owner's hand. Oh no, yeah, you can blast your own unit should you want to. Okay, so you bounce a unit back into the owner's hand, and then it changes it to a random unit of the same cost. So if you bounce, like for example, a Grodov's Favor, it goes back into your opponent's hand, and then they get a random 6-drop. Could be an upgrade to a rare or legendary, could be a downgrade to another common. The sky's the limit. It could be any 6-drop in all of Eternal's history. So mainly you're using it for the bounce effect, which obviously on this card means it can get rid of the 1 blocker that prevented this unit from getting in, and then you can attack. So this card's great. I like it a lot. I'm going to give it a B. There are going to be some board states where it's not able to attack, but I think if you get 1 unit off the board and you're able to attack even once, that's probably good, right? Because you get a unit off the board somewhat. No, I think you want to draw 2 cards off of this before you're happy about it. But yeah, this can easily run away with the game. I've lost plenty of times to the opponent just drawing 1 additional card over me over the course of like 3 or 4 turns and not being able to catch up. And it is a tempo play, especially if you bounce a bigger unit. They have the option of actually getting a much better unit, but they also have to take their entire turn off to do it again. So Sodi Spellshaper, you get a solid B. Here we have Sodi the Metamorph, or Sodi. I think I've heard someone say Sodi. That sounds kind of cool, Sodi. Anyways, she is a 3/3 elemental shaman at legendary for 3 triple-time, triple primal. All right. And I'm going to read this backwards because I think that's the way it's more important. But you have muster, replenish your power. So if you are able to muster, which we've talked about before, is really under supported mechanic in this format, but still, if you are able to muster, you replenish your power. Remember, you can only do muster once per turn, and just real quick, because it is the first time we bring it up, muster means you play a attachment, so a curse, weapon, or relic weapon, and a spell in the same turn. So typically, like for example, our Sodi Spellshaper, if you play that and you activate the spellcraft, it will trigger muster, and you get all your power back, all your power. And it doesn't even have to be just for what caused the muster. So let's say you have 8 power and you play a 4-drop and then muster with the other 4, it will replenish all 8 of your power for that turn. But of note, you can only do muster once per turn. You can only trigger muster once per turn. So that's fine. I mean, that's strong. That's very powerful, but you're not getting her just for that. You're getting her for this line of text right here. At the start of your turn, draw a card. That's right. Plain and simple. Is you don't have to attack with her. You don't have to defend with her or block. You don't have to do anything. She could just sit on the board, and as long as she's alive, she's going to draw you an extra card. And I cannot tell you how powerful that is in limited. So yeah, Sodi the Metamorph, you're going to get a straight up A. Just straight up, because you're 3/3 for 3 that draws you a bunch of cards. Of note, her influence requirement is quite difficult. So there is a really good chance you're not going to play her on 3. But the fact that you really don't want to, you want to wait till your opponent's exhausted all their removal, then drop her and start drawing a ton of cards and win that way. So yeah, Sodi the Metamorph, you get an A from the Jedi because she is awesome. All right, here's one of the promo cards. Not really a promo card, but it was a benefit to the packs that you got. It's irrelevant. We're limited. You're only gonna see this when you draft it. But this is Elin Mizo. And Elin Mizo is an Explorer Dinosaur at rare. It is a 5-cost, time, primal, 6/6. So, not too bad. Somewhat harsh restrictions, but you gotta wait up to 5, so there's a good chance you'll be able to play it on curve. They have endurance. So 6/6 endurance is good. Once again, of note, 6 being that critical thing that trades with time units, and mastery 12. So on baseline, it has to deal damage twice, right? Block once, attack once. Endurance helps that. Play a copy of Elin Mizo. So this thing does, if it triggers mastery, you get an exact copy of it. So you get another 6/6 endurance. Of note, it copies the unit when it triggers mastery. So one common combo that people have already been talking about is putting some kind of fight effect on Illa. So play it, attack, that's 6. Then the next turn you attack, boom, there's your 12, and it makes a copy, and the copy has killer. So you're able to do it again. So if you're able to slap flying on it, things like that, the copied version will have it. So this is quite powerful. I think if you're an Elysian, this on its own, 6/6 for 5 with endurance is great. Absolutely wonderful. You're super happy about that. And the added bonus of just essentially it doing tussling twice will give it its mastery, I think makes it quite strong. It will stabilize you. It fits your curve nicely in development. And yeah, I like Illa quite a bit. I'm going to give it an A. I think Illa and Mizo are an A. Mainly because of I really like the fact that it can copy itself and it's in colors that are able to do that. You have bounce spells, you have things that can clear the way for Illa to get in there, and even if you're behind, you're still able to swing because of the fact that it has endurance. And then of course it also has metal in its colors, so it could just swing freely and then heal itself. So that seems like a good thing to me. Going into Zenon's cycle, we have Worthy Cause. This is a fast spell rare for 1-time shadow. Artwork's pretty neat, gotta admit. That's a cool headdress, and the guy looks terrified, which rightly so. I don't think that girl has any pupils. Anywho, Worthy Cause, sacrifice a unit to silence an enemy unit and give it a -1/-1 for each unit in your void. Okay, we've seen a similar spell to this. I forgot the name of it now. Something Shadows, Devouring Shadows. No, that's not it. That's the one that goes off of Shadow Influence. I don't remember, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Death Spores, Spore Deaths, something like that. Anywho, that one does some work, especially late in the game. This is a fast spell, which makes it significantly better, and it is only 1 cost. Only problem is you do have to sacrifice one of your own units. And in most cases, I would say that is a downside, but Zenon is the cultist sacrifice deck. So there are several cards that make more than 1 unit. And there are, hey, when a cultist dies, synergies. So you kind of want your cultist to die, to be honest with you. So this is a pretty decent removal spell. It is somewhat conditional. It does okay in the early game. Obviously, because there's going to be smaller units. In the later game, you can trade aggressively to make this remove more. I think that, once again, the silence effect is relevant because of the fact that there is a lot of recursion in this format, or at least it feels like it, in the form of Exalted as well as Immortalized and things like that. And then it has a Decimate ability. Your units gain lifesteal this turn, which could swing a race. Like in one big turn, you sack one of your cultists, you get rid of your opponent's biggest unit, it dies, it gets silenced, so it can't come back. Now your guys have lifesteal for a big major swing. Then you have you're less likely to die on the crackback. So there is some power to that. It does scale, but there are going to be times where you might not have enough units in the void to make it relevant. That being said, there's also the chance that you don't have to necessarily silence or kill the unit outright. So if sometimes maybe this thing doing a -3 is enough to allow your unit to live and their unit to die after combat. So I do think there is some flexibility to it and application to it. Of course, once again, if you don't have a unit, then that's a problem. So it's not the greatest when you're behind. But leaving 1 up is fairly simple to do. So I think the flexibility of it, I think it's a B. I think this worthy cause is going to play out in a B because the decks that want it are going to be able to utilize it to its maximum potential. So I like worthy cause. I think the most of the time it's going to take out something that is relevant. At the very least, it will shrink a flyer and get it out of the air or break a utility unit. So yeah, I like worthy cause. Worthy cause, you're going to get a B. Next up, we have Zenzu, Hand of Nahid. This guy looks like legit bodyguard style. This is a cultist at rare. It is a 2/2 for 2 time shadow. At the start of your turn, discard the top card of your deck. So mill 1. All right, pretty standard, somewhat reasonable. When another cultist goes to your void, Senzu gets a +1/+1 and you gain 1 life. So, or 1 health. So of note, this is not off of his trigger. It is whenever any other cultist goes to the void. So if you block with a cultist, if you mill a cultist off of a malaise, or the 3/3 that mills you, if you sacrifice a cultist, doesn't matter. As long as a cultist dies, Senzu gets a +1/+1 and you gain a life. So that's really good synergy. I think this card is solid, and he will continue to grow. So your opponent has a finite window of being able to deal with Senzu before he just gets too big. The benefit there is he would be a big unit that only cost you 2. Of note, he does not have Overwhelm yet, or Lifesteal, or Flying, so there is the option of just chump blocking. But obviously he gets bigger for you just doing the things that your deck wants to do. The mill is a cost. If you're not accommodating, sometimes you will mill that removal spell you needed, that Fell Ritual or something like that. So there is a cost there, but it's not bad either. There are other how many cards are in your void synergies. I like Senzu. I think he's a must-answer threat, and a lot of times, anytime your 2/2 can eat up one of your opponent's premium removal spells, you're doing pretty good. So I like Senzu. I think Senzu is a B. I think it really is a B. Let me think. Hold on. Yeah, because he's able to fuel himself. If you draw him late, it's a little less, but it's not horrible. Like, he still has the option of getting bigger. I don't really think there's enough mill. Obviously, if you go up against the mill opponent, then the self mill might be an issue, but that's going to be corner cases. Yeah, I think Senzu's a B-. And yeah, because he could trigger more than once a turn. So he can trigger, like, for example, you can play him, then next turn he discards a cultist, he gets bigger, then a cultist dies, he gets bigger, then you sack a cultist, he gets bigger. So you can get like a max of like +3/+3 in one turn. Make him a 5/5 for 2. That seems good. Yeah, I think Zenzu's a B-. I think there's some incidental upside where this guy's going to do some work, and once again, at the very least, he's going to be a lightning rod. And anytime your 2/2 is a lightning rod, that's a good thing. So Senzu, you are a B-. Nahid the Immortal. Nahid the Immortal is a cultist at legendary. She is a 7/7 for 7, triple time, triple shadow. At the start of each player's turn, they sacrifice another unit. If they can't, Nahid deals 7 damage to them. Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. That will end the game very quickly, especially if you are the cultist. Once again, the cultist deck that has plenty of units to sacrifice, and your opponent's not prepared for that. First time you have 50 life or more, play Nahid from your deck. Yeah, that's irrelevant. That's just not going to be a thing in limited. I don't care how much life gain you have in your deck. That's not going to happen limited when units trading off and attacks happening back to back. The first part, though, once again, it comes down to the Shinra Speaks thing. You know you have her in your deck. You know you could play around it, and you know when it should come down. If you have no units in your, no units on your board, then you're not going to play Nahid. So that is the downside. She could get stranded in your hand. Her being a 7-drop makes me feel like you will have time to adjust the board state. And once again, you know you have her in your deck, so you can probably play a couple more token generators and things like that. So I think Nahid, I like her. It is a little slow though. Once again, remember each opponent they get to pick. So if they have multiple units on the board, there is a chance that it'll be a while before she really starts to get to the units that matter. But she is a 7/7 in her own right, and she could start beating where they have to chump block as well. And then of course, if they have no units, like, that's just a combination of 14 damage a turn, which will end the game very quickly. So yeah, I'm going to take a chance and give Nahid the Immortal a A. I think Nahid is quite powerful. I like her a lot. So yeah, Nahid the Immortal, you get an A. Moving on to Electrostatic Distortion. This is the Huru cycle. It's a cursed relic at rare for 1 Justice Primal. Artwork's kind of cool. The cursed player can't have more than 1 armor. Alright. And their spells deal -1 damage. Yeah, this is too cute. This is an F. You just don't want to play this. Alright, fine. I'll give it a D. Just because of the fact that you might have need some cursed synergies, but even then, the armor thing is not going to be that relevant. Limited, there's not that many weapons running around. There are some, but not that many. In most cases, they break immediately. And the -1 to spell damage, once again, you don't see a lot of spell damage in this format. We've seen other cards like this before, it wasn't that good. These two mediocre abilities put together does not make a good card. Yeah, no, I'm gonna stick to it. Electrostatic Distortion, it's an F. It's just too cute. You can do way better than this. There's more than enough curses in the format. Moving right along, we have Forbidden Rider Outcast. This is a 3/3 Shaman Griffin at rare for 4 Justice Primal. It is flying, so 3/3 flyer for 4. Good, I like that. Summon, play a -3 curse or attack, -3 attack curse on an uncursed enemy unit. So of note, is -3, -0, but it has to be on a unit that is not cursed yet, which in most cases I think that's okay. I think in most cases units if you have a curse on a unit already, you won't need to put a second one on it, so I think that's fine. If you can't, play a Curse of Loneliness on the enemy player instead. Oh, that's cute. Curse of Loneliness. Let's read what that says. Curse of Loneliness is a curse relic that goes on the opponent, like we just talked about. At the end of the cursed player's turn, if they didn't play a unit, deal 1 damage to them, and you gain 1 armor. All right, that's not bad. A drain is not bad. Dealing 1 damage on its own to the opponent isn't that great, but the fact that you are gaining a life as well, so it's a 2-point life sim technically, and it's tacked onto a body, I think is quite good. So I like Forbidden Rider. That being said, neither the unit nor the curse is huge. For all intents and purposes, the -3 attack, -3, -0 could be a removal spell. I think it's a B. I think Forbidden Rider Outcast is a B. Of course, it doesn't have to take a unit down to 0. It could take a unit from, let's say, for example, a 6/5 to a 3/5 and make it much more manageable. But yeah, Forbidden Rider Outcast, you're good, but you are a solid B. Next up, we have Perul Sealkeeper. This is a 5/5 Unseen Gunslinger with a primo blinged out gun at Legendary. It is 6 cost, triple justice, triple primal. So 5/5 for 6. He has endurance. Okay. And your griffins deal double damage. Heyo, that sounds good. Summon, play a griffin with flying and attack and health equal to the number of curses on the enemy player and their unit. Seems okay. I mean, what are we talking? Probably on average, honestly, you're making a 1/1. Best case scenario, maybe you're making a 3/3. But from what I've noticed in this format is that the curses don't really stay along very long. They either immediately kill a unit, or the unit's sacrificed, or it just, yeah. And you're not running all the units. So I think he's all right. I don't remember off the cuff how many griffins we have in the format, but I really don't think there's that many. I think there's probably sub 6 of them, if I remember correctly. I don't know, off the cuff. I don't think there's enough griffins to really get your payoff off the double damage. They are flyers. Plus, one of the griffins that comes to mind is that 1/1 griffin, so it's just technically a 2/1. That's not exciting. Yeah, I think he's kind of medium. I actually am going to put Perul Sealkeeper at a C. I think he's not all that exciting. A 5/5 endurance for 6 is okay. You do get another flying body off of it. Best case scenario, you get a 3/3, so a 6/3 for 1, which is not bad. That's pretty good, but that's best case scenario. And once again, 3 health is not a lot. There are plenty of ways to remove that in this format, to include with other flyers. And, on average, we're probably going to get just a 1/1, I think, from my experiences. So, yeah, Perul Sealkeeper, I think you're just a C. I think you're serviceable. You're not unhappy about having in your deck, but you're also not going to be amazing. Moving into Argenport, we have Cast into Shadow. Cast into Shadow is a fast spell at rare. It is 3 Justice Shadow. And it reads, kill an enemy unit or curse with a single faction. So of note, it just straight up kills anything, but it can't be dual faction. And as you guys have noticed, there are a lot of multi-faction units so far. So I do think it will do some work. I do think it is a solid kill spell. It has Decimate, then kill an additional enemy unit or curse with the same single faction. So that is slightly even more restricting if you really think about it, because of the fact that it has to be of the same faction. So you have to kill 2 primal units, you have to kill 2 justice units, and they can't be multi-faction. Like, I think that's a huge restriction. I think there are going to be times where you're able to decimate, cast in a shadow, and it being fast speed, it's going to wreck your opponent's day. There are going to be other times where you're able to only kill one thing, and there are other times where you're not going to be able to kill anything. I think Cast in the Shadow is a solid B. It is still a removal spell. Annihilate sees a lot of play. This is just about the same thing for just a little bit harder to cast in the form of 3 power instead of 2, and then 2 faction. But yeah, I think Cast in the Shadow is a solid B. I like it, and the fact that there's some bonus upside to be able to kill 2 things to include curses is quite relevant, especially if your opponent casts a huge curse you just can't deal with. For example, if they manage to land a Kodash Sees All, I think that's relevant. So yeah, Cast in the Shadows, you're going to get a B. Next up, we have Nivea, Most Devoted, or Nivea. I like Nivea. She's a 4/4 paladin at rare for 4 Argent Port. So Justice, Shadow. When you decimate your power, your paladins get +1/+1. All right, that's serviceable. She's Argent Port colors. Argent Port is the decimate colors. You'll probably have two paladins, maybe 3 paladins in play, because I could see it you having Nivea, you having the Nivea's Inquisitor, and then the Xulta Paladin. So I think it's a thing. I think that is quite relevant, so that's fine. And Mastery 20, the enemy player loses all their maximum power. So you are going to win the game if you get Mastery 20. That being said, getting Mastery 20 out of a 4/4 doesn't seem that easy to do. And I feel like if you're doing that, you're also already winning. What are you doing? Like 2 insane draw strengths? So yeah, I think the Mastery 20, there's no doubt about it. You take all your opponent's maximum power away. Now they're top decking their power. You're still being able to play everything every turn. That has a good chance of winning you the game. But I do like when you decimate, your paladins get +1/+1. If you've played with her Inquisitor at all, that at the uncommon level, you can typically activate him twice, giving him +4/+4. So this seems relevant. Like, I like this quite a bit. I think it's solid on the baseline. It is just a 4/4 for 4, and chances are you may not play it on 4 because of the fact that it is double faction, double faction. So double Justice, double Shadow. I think she's a C. Honestly, I think that's where I'll put her at. She's C+. I think at the end of the day, she's just more than serviceable. The difference between her and Rambha is just the fact that her abilities are a little less relevant versus Rambha is just good in every form or fashion of the facet of the game. So yeah, Nivea, you get a C+ from me. Here we have Elaz, Martial Scholar. This is a 3/5 paladin at legendary. 6 Justice, Shadow. So 6 cost, 3 Justice, 3 Shadow. He has a 3/5 with endurance and unblockable. Okay, I like those stats. That's solid. Summon, set each other unit's attack to 3. That means 3 period. That means any 1/1s go up to 3/1s, and any like 6/5s go down to 3/5s. So it stabilizes the board as far as attack goes. Hopefully you can cater that in a way where it boosts your units and decreases or hinders your opponent's units. And Mastery 9, play a card of your choice from the enemy player's deck. Seems pretty good. That seems pretty good. Once again, we are in draw strength colors with multiple pump spells, so the chances of getting Mastery off early is a thing. And from what I've noticed back from my Magic days and cube drafting, is being able to play a unit from your opponent, or play any card, a key removal spell, a bomb, from your opponent's deck is super strong, because you're getting their best card and you're also taking and denying them their best card. So that seems super powerful. Once again, have hard requirements. It is a little late in the game, so chances are they might have had the chance to have that card already, But if not, I mean, there's some serious upside. You also get their their best second card or third card. Once again, you get a removal spell. I think the variance to this is quite strong. If they've played their bomb, it is going to regulate it to a 3 attack unit. So I think Eloz is quite strong. I'm going to give Eloz an A- because, I mean, especially if you slap like a lifesteal weapon or something on him, he does some work. Yeah, I think Eloz, he's still a little slow. That's my concern. A 3/5 on 6 is not really impacting the board that much, but his summon ability does impact the board. So yeah, I'm going to give Eloz, I'll give him a flat A with concern. I think he might be a little slow. Let me know in the comments below if you had a chance to play with Eloz, what you think about him. But yeah, Eloz, you're going to get an A from me because I think all 3 stat lines on him are quite relevant. Endurance unblockable is great, so he blocks and you can still get him for damage. If any streetwise Minotaurs taught us anything, and then the summon effect once again hopefully will make some of your guys smaller, which is an issue, but when everyone's a 3 attack, I think it's okay. So yeah, moving along home stretch, guys, we're almost done here. It looks like we just have Feln and the sites, so thanks for bearing with me. We have Conservatory Alchemist. This is a 2/2 for 2 unseen at rare, and it's 2 Feln, so 2 Primal Shadow. And when you play a curse, your units get a +1 attack. All your units. Seems good. I like this card. I think it's a solid C+. I'll put it up there with Oni War Painter. Is that the Warbrush Oni? No. Oh, I'm forgetting these names. Sorry, new set. Anywho, a 2/2 for 2 is fine. That's the baseline. That's perfectly fine. Hopefully you play down 2, and then if you're able to incidentally play curses, which Feln wants to do one way or another, you're probably going to buff your team like once or twice, which is a good bonus. Obviously in a stalled board state, that's great because you're buffing more units. Minimum, it buffs itself. Yeah, I like Conservatory Alchemist. I think it is a C+. It's not exactly a backbreaking ability. That being said, though, it is in the colors with those a ton of birds, right? The 2/1 flyer, the 1/1 berserk, the 1/4 that makes them discard, and the 0/5. So there's some bonus synergies there, and so there's something to be said there. That might bump him up to like a B-, but for right now, I'm just gonna, in a vacuum, I'm gonna give him a C+. Kindo Shadow Step. This is a 2/7 unseen at rare for 4 Primal Shadow. Kindo reads, when any player discards a card, Kindo deals 1 damage to himself. Okay, that's odd. But Mastery 13. So the 1 damage he's dealing to himself does count as damage dealt, so it will count towards his mastery. The enemy player discards each card in their deck that shares a name with a card in their void. That seems very lackluster in limited, because most of the time it's only going to be a 1/of anyways. You may occasionally mill an additional 2, maybe 3 cards, but they're all commons. Like you're obviously not going to mill like their bomb legendary or anything like that. So it seems pretty medium to me. 2/7 body makes a great blocker. It carries weapons very well for 4. I think there's some value there. So I'm going to put Kindo Shadow Step at a solid C. I don't think you're picking this highly, but it's also not a bad inclusion in your deck. I mean, it literally blocks a ton of things. It blocks the majority of common beaters in this format. So, and some of the rare ones too. So yeah, Kindo Shadow Step, you get a solid C from me. And Felrock, the Outcast. This is the very first card spoiled of this set. This is a 5/2 unseen legendary. For 6 triple primal, triple shadow. Artwork is absolutely sick. Once again, 6 triple fire, triple shadow. Or I'm sorry, triple primal. Correction. Feln. Triple Feln. So triple primal and triple shadow. Now, if you have triple primal and triple shadow influence, if Felrock is discarded, play him from your void. So kind of insurance into the self-mill thing. If you happen to play a 3/3 for 3, or you melees yourself and Felrock makes it into the void, you don't miss out on your legendary. You actually get to play him for free, pseudo. He will come into play, then trigger his summon effect. Summon, the enemy player discards a card from their hand, then discards its cost in cards off the top of their deck. So what this means is that you're automatically getting a 2-for-1, typically off of Felrock, in the form of that they have to discard a card and then they have to spend either a unit or a removal spell to get them off the board. What the second portion of this text means is for example, you make them discard and they're like, well, shoot, okay, I guess I'll discard my 2/2 that's left in my hand, right? Well, the card, if it was, for example, a conservative alchemist, the 2/2 for 2, then they will mill an additional 2 cards off the top of their deck. If you catch them early in the game and it's only turn 3 and they're like, well, I guess I'll mill my outcast or my 6-drop since I'm nowhere near playing it right now, then they will have to mill 6 cards off the top of their deck. I think he's fine. Not super excited about him. And then, of course, if you just hard cast him, a 5/2 seems very underwhelming. He trades down a lot. Yeah, I think Felrock I think he's a C. I think he's also a C. You are getting 2 for 1, which is nice, but it's once again the enemy player's choice, and you may or may not be able to dictate when you play him. So Felrock, the Outcast, gets a C. All right, guys, this moves us into our sites, so we are almost done. Let's get through this together. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Wow, this multi-faction ones have been a long one, but I guess these are complex legendaries for sure. We have Outcast Fortress. This is the shoot. I don't even know the name of this one. Oh well, I apologize. I'm pretty sure it's not Outcast. Anywho. Outcast Fortress is a site at Legendary. It is 3 cost. It is Justice Primal Shadow. And its static ability is your curses cost 1 less. Okay, a little bit of a power brosness there. It's a 3-drop for 3, so it's a little vulnerable. But it has, of course, like all sites, an agenda. So we'll play 3 spells. And then the 4th spell will be the summon of a unit. So you have, and you can pick the order. These all happen at the start of your turn. Whether you like it or not, you have to pick one. So first one is Protect. Give a unit or player Aegis. Okay, that's serviceable. Obviously, the downside is, worst case scenario, if you don't have a unit, you just face Aegis, which could be relevant. Next, you have Pilfer, which draw the top card of your enemy deck. So it somewhat draws you a card. Okay. And the last one is Cruelty. This is a spell that, once again, we've covered in the previous set review. Play Inferiority Complex on an enemy unit, which is a curse that forces them to have Reckless and attack every turn. And you can decimate it to deal 2 damage to that unit. And then finally, the summon effect or the agenda when it pops is Zelia the Vane, which is a 4/5 unseen, 6 cost Shadow. Has Deadly. She has Bond, which is irrelevant because you're getting her for free off the agenda. And then pay 4 to play a -2/-1 affliction on an enemy unit and give Zelia a +2/+1. So to be honest with you, I think it's a pretty lackluster site. The only card that is somewhat serviceable in most cases is going to be Pilfer. The Protect is relevant. Cruelty is probably the least exciting out of all of them. But the fact that the payoff is Zelia does make it quite feasible because Zelia is awesome. Zelia is quite powerful. Removal spells, triggers curses. I think that's great. That being said, the site does not protect itself, so you definitely want to play it in a stabilized board state. So the 3 cost isn't that great. And it, of course, 3, as we did in the set review number crunch, 3 life isn't much. There are a lot of 3 damage spells and units in this format. So I think I'm going to put Outcast Fortress at probably a C+. It's pretty lackluster to me, but it will cause your opponent to change the way they play because most sites cause people to freak out, and so they're going to attack aggressively to get off the board. If you should happen to get a good board state and you're able to get to Zelia, there's a good chance you're going to win. It might be closer to B, but I'm going to play conservative and give Outcast Fortress a C+. Next up, we have Profane Nexus. This is a site, once again, at Legendary, 4 cost, Fire, Time, Shadow. When you sacrifice a unit, deal 1 damage to the enemy and you gain a life. And this is not, it's a static ability, but it's not something you have to do. It's just whenever you end up sacrificing units. But luckily, Obrak's agenda does that for you. First off is Devour. So sacrifice a unit to draw 2 cards and gain 2 life. So not bad. Once again, this is colors that have Zenon, or the Cultist. So you'll have plenty of little 1/1s to sack and things that synergize with that. Even has fire, so the Cindermaw Toda is a thing. You have Last Rites. Sacrifice a unit to play a sigil of your choice from your deck depleted. Okay, and Soul's Fury. Sacrifice a unit to deal 4 damage to an enemy, both player or unit. All right, so not bad. That agenda isn't too bad. Draws you cards, fixes your power, and all / ramps you, and also kills a unit. So I like it. I think the agenda is fine. And then finally you have Obrak, the Feaster. This is a 7/7 dragon for 5 triple shadow. Has flying, has a revenge. At the start of your turn, sacrifice a unit. So of course, we just talked about the site, as long as it's around the sacrifice unit at the start of every turn, does allow you to create some additional synergy. And a 7/7 flyer is a beater. If they manage to kill it the first time, it has revenge, so it will come back. But there is a cost. You have to sacrifice a unit at the start of every turn. So if you're trading off back and forth, it seems kind of rough. And if there's nothing left on the board, you will sacrifice Obrak to itself, which seems a little awkward, but hey, I guess the dragon starts eating its tail. So that being said, it is a thing. And so I think it's pretty good. It's not a bad site. I like the utility. I think the fact that the site itself is strong, as you know, as far as the agenda, and then the payoff is quite good as well. I think it's quite powerful. One thing of note, that if you noticed, all 3 spells require you to sacrifice a unit. So you are eating your fodder for Obrak. You definitely have to anticipate that. So some decks may not be able to accommodate that, but I do think the fact that if you take it early, you're able to, you know, once again, Zenon does have plenty of things that wants to sacrifice, and to a certain extent, so does Fire. So I think that's something you can accommodate. And worst case scenario, you can always just use like 1 or 2 abilities and then allow your opponent to destroy the site. So I like Profane Nexus. I will give it a I think it actually does a decent job of getting you back. I think I'm going to give it an A. It has a removal spell, has card draw, has fixing, and the beater at the end isn't bad at all. So yeah, I think I'm going to give Profane Nexus an A. Let me know if you've played it in limited and if you had a hard time doing the sacrifice units or not. Next up, guys, we have Bastion of the Dawn. Super cool artwork. This is, once again, legendary site with 5 armor, health, whatever it's called. And it is 5 cost, time, justice, primal. And Bastion of Dawn's static ability is your units can't be silenced. All right, that's actually somewhat relevant. Like they were living in a format of Grodov's favored and Steelweave Shroud, so silence effects are a galore. So that is somewhat relevant. 5 is a lot for a site though, but 5 is also a lot of health. Irel's agenda. All right, let's see what this does. So Irel's agenda is safe return. Put 1 of your units into your hand and give it a +1/+1. Of course, it's essentially best when you're able to save a unit from removal, but the fact that you have to play it when the site tells you to means that it's not that good. It's mainly just buffing a unit, maybe reoccurring a summon effect. Seems kind of medium to me. Twinning Ritual. Create and draw a copy of a unit in your hand. Then the copy gets a +1/+1. You have the option of safe returning a unit back in your hand, giving a +1/+1, and then Twinning Ritual to copy it and give it another, and then give the copy a +1/+1, which seems okay. Once again, you're kind of going down on cards somewhat. Like you're going down on card by safe returning your own unit and not really using it to save from a removal spell, but you can make another one from Twinning Ritual. It's kind of a tempo play. Seems a little medium, to be honest with you. And then Vision of Austerity. Transform an enemy relic into an Omen of Austerity, cursed relic. So it just means that you destroy whatever relic they have, and then they are unable to play an additional one, which is not really a thing in limited. So it's just a little bit of relic removal, which is kind of narrow. It might pretty much just work against Argenport. And then, of course, the unit you get at the end is Gentrix Irel, the 4th, and she's a 2/2 for 4, double Combre. +1 maximum power, meh, and summon, give 1 of your other units +4/+4 while you have Gentrix in play. Yeah, seems lackluster. I don't think this is really a relevant card. I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a D. I think it can do some work in some decks, but it's just, none of it is very exciting to me. So I'm not very high on it at all. Second to last site is going to be Den of Ordeals. Den of Ordeals is legendary once again, 4 health, 6 cost, 1 fire, 1 primal, 1 shadow. At the start of your turn, create and draw a treasure trove for each different name among your dragons. it is limited. It is colors that have all the dragons. So let's just say baseline, it will give you 1 treasure. I think it's serviceable. I think most dragon decks will have somewhere of about 3 to 5 dragons if you're kind of counting like Teething Dragon, Cinder Dragon. So there is some options there. So the chances of you technically drawing a card for 2 every turn is relevant. I like that. I think that's solid, especially if you're in a stalled board state, so you don't have to block with your dragons or attack. You're just kind of sitting there. This is easy way to get card advantage. We already talked about how Sodai was so important earlier, or strong, because she drew you a card every turn. This is very similar to that. Let's go into the agenda. The agenda has Talon Dive. Give a flying unit +2/+2 and overwhelm this turn. Once again, obviously, if you want to have a dragon in play, you're going to, that you can get it, but it might not be in a position where you want to attack with it. Maybe you do. Not really sure. It's kind of medium ability, but fine. The end is near. Discard the top 10 power cards of your deck. So that seems kind of odd initially, but the fact that Den of Ordeals comes down at 6, right? In most cases, you won't need too much more power after that unless you want to play more than 1 spell a turn. So end is near. What it does is it'll get rid of the top 10 power of your deck, so it cleans up your next couple of draw steps, right? So you got to think that with the next 10 power gone, and you've already played 6, maybe 7 by the time this comes down, that's the majority of power in your deck. So then what it did now is that you're pretty much just drawing gas for the rest of the game. So that's actually deceptively stronger than it thinks. Sometimes you'll want to play it first, sometimes you'll want to wait and try to get additional power first. And then finally you get Streets of Flames, a known limited favorite. Deal 3 damage and scout, which is solid. I think it'll do some work. Kind of narrow. I do like the fact that it defends itself and it draws you a card. Of course, if you're able to, I think just the payoff at the end makes this card a straight up A, and it's Nakova and Mallet this time. They are 8/8 flying, Aegis, Berserk. Yeah, right there. So potential 16 damage the next turn. They are 10 cost, but they are only playable through the site. Well, I'll go over the cost anyways. It's a Nightmare Dragon. It is 10, double fire, double primal, double shadow. Once again, 8/8, flying, Aegis, and Berserker. You heard that right. Then summon, no spark, just summon them. Deal 4 damage to each enemy, unit and face. 4 damage across the board. This can't be blocked by Aegis as if it needed more. So even if they have Aegis, that's going to go bye-bye, and then enemies killed this turn get void bound. This card is just a beating. So yeah, I'm not even gonna go into that. Like, that's straight up Den of Ordeals. You're gonna get an A, straight up, just because of the fact that, like, if it resolves, you're gonna win the game. You'd be hard pressed. And in fact, I might even go as far as A+. Yeah, I think it's A+. That'll be the A+ I give for multi-faction. A+ for Den of Ordeals. And our final site, guys, moving on, is Xulta Arcanum. This is a 7 cost, 5 health legendary site, and it's 7 fire time justice. Once again, 5 health. When you attack with 1 or more units, play a random power card from your deck. Of note, it is 1 or more, so you can attack with 3, or you can attack with 1, or you can attack with 10, and you still only get 1 additional power. But it is 1 additional power, period, and it is played, so it is not depleted. So, I mean, obviously, it comes out the way it comes out. So if it was a crest, you would scout. If it's just a random power, you get additional power. If it's an insignia, but you're 3 colors, then it comes in depleted, etc., etc. But it still ramps you, and you can do this every turn, which is quite strong. I mean, that being said, you're already at 7 power, so it's kind of more of like a little bit of a win more card, but it also kind of has a similar effect to End of the Story, or End of Days, whatever the last one was, where it takes extra power off the top of your deck. Note this says a random power card from your deck, not from the top, so you will still have power in your deck, but eventually, you'll play it out. Let's go over the agenda. The agenda is Vital Arcana, draw 2 cards and gain 2 life. Sweet, awesome, like it. Xulta Convoy, play 2/2 exiles with Aegis and Endurance. Solid, solid. Harmony of Flame, you get +1 power this turn for each of your units. Reduce the cost of each spell in your deck by 1. All right, this one's better on a board stall, and of course we've talked about sites you want to be able to protect them, so you'll have units in play. So this could help you ramp, but once again, when you're already at 7 power to play the site, don't know what you, I guess it gives you power the turn that you play it, so it might not technically cost 7. You can play the Arcanum, then play Harmony of Flame to immediately, let's say you get 4 or 5 power, and then play something else, and you're reducing the cost of everything else in your deck. So that's kind of note of note. It is in your deck, not in your hand. So the things in your hand will not count, but everything in your deck will cost 1 cheaper. So yeah, I think it's 3 relevant modes. That's probably pretty accurate. And then finally, Bren the Archmagister is the payoff. It is a 5/5 for 7 red. When you play another card, you get +1 power this turn. Really medium, super medium on this card. I think he's actually like a D on his own, but I think the agenda is actually quite strong, believe it or not. So 7 is a lot though, so I'm going to put Xulta Arcanum at a B. I think it is a B. I like the fact that you're getting 3 relevant spells out of it, and yeah, and it can ramp you and stuff. But that's going to do it for the multi-faction, guys. As you can tell, each faction got their own little cycle of things, plus a new site to work with if you decide to splash a 3rd color. Super exciting. These cards seem very swingy to me. Let's see how they play out. I feel like I gave out a lot more B's and A's than I expected to, but maybe these cards are pushed. There are some C's in there, and that's expected. And then obviously in rares, they're very swingy, sometimes for constructed, so you will see some D's and F's. But overall, I think they did a really good job on the dual faction cards. Let me know what you think. But that will do it for a multi-faction rare and legendary. Our first single faction is going to be Time, and up first is Reap. Reap is a slow spell at rare. It costs 0 and requires only 1 time influence, and you gain 3 health. Yeah, no, that's not worth a card, but there's more text. Decimate, gain 1 influence of every color. Yeah, no, this is just not a thing. Yeah, F. Moving on. Not gonna waste your time. Moving right along, guys. We have Arc of Soul. This is a cycle of bargain cards. They are at rare. So real quick to touch on bargain is you can potentially put this in your market should you have either A, smuggler, or B, 2 bargain cards in your deck. If you have only 2 bargain cards, if you have a bargain card and no merchant or smuggler, if you add it to your deck, it will give you the option of opening up a market. But there's no way to put that specific card in the market, so you have to have either smuggler or a second bargain card to have 1 in the main and 1 in the market. So pretty lackluster when it comes to limited, though it could be a thing. And once again, smuggler bargain just means that you are able to play this card from your market should you, without using a merchant, should you meet a certain requirement. This cycle specifically is a certain tribe has to hit the enemy player. And so for the Arc of Soul, it is a slow spell at rare for 1 at a time, and it requires you to hit the enemy player with a cultist. So what does Arc of Soul do? Of note as well is that it does let you play it from the market, but it does not let you play it for free. You are still required to pay the cost of it. So it's essentially just an alternate way of accessing your market. Arc of Soul reads, sacrifice a unit to play a sigil of your choice from your deck, depleted, and gain 2 life. So it is fixing and ramp for 1. So that is something. You can essentially do this on turn 2, right? Play a 1-drop and then do this. And it is in a color of that has the sack outlets, namely all the cultist. So there is a benefit to Arc of Soul. I do think the ramp is relevant, especially at the cost of your decks accommodating, cashing in a 1/1, or maybe a 2/2 that's already served its purpose, or if you have a bigger unit. There are also cards that care when a unit dies and when a cultist dies. So this could enable certain synergies. That being said, though, I think at the end of the day, it's simply just a fixing or ramp card. So probably, I think it's a D+. I think it's a D+. There's very minimal ramping requirements in this format, and I think there's other ways to ramp that don't cost you a card or half a card. So yeah, I think Arc of Soul is probably about a D+. Next up, we have Snapping Hydrangea. That sounds like a flower. Snapping Hydrangea is a 5/5 Mandrake at rare for 2 and a time. So wait a minute, what? 5/5 for 2? This seems awesome. Hold on. Summon. The enemy player plays 4 1/1 cultist. Okay, so this is quite an interesting card. I feel like it's probably a C-. Paying 2 for a 5/5 is relevant at the fact that you're able to play 2 spells in one turn a lot sooner because of this. Like on your turn 5, you could play this and a 3-drop. Especially if your deck isn't looking to be very aggressive, or maybe if you do have methods of pushing through damage. I think it's still C- because you are giving your opponent 4 chump blockers, and that could be relevant. That being said, if you are comboing this with Combre, it does power up your draw strength, so that could be a thing as well. It's really tough. At the end of the day, it's still just a vanilla 5/5. You know, no overwhelm, no flying, no Aegis, nothing. So yeah, I think Snapping Hydra is probably about a C-, maybe even a D. But, you know, sometimes having a 5/5 that can stonewall your opponent's attacks is relevant. So I'll give it a C-. I think it's fine, but there is definitely giving your opponent 4 units is definitely a cost. What if they're flying? You know, if they have evasion and they're beating you in the air, and then giving them 4 1/1s just gave them a bunch of chump blockers, so you can't beat them in a race. So yeah. Beware of snapping hydrangea. Okay, moving right along, guys. We have Nash Unrelenting. This is a 4/4 warrior at a legendary for 3 time. So a 4/4 for 3 is really good, high on curve. Oh no, though. It has muster. Muster. Nash gets a +3/+3 this turn, so bare minimum he becomes a 7/7 for the turn. Your other units are invulnerable to damage this turn. Okay, so that kind of allows you to A-space your opponent for a turn. You do have to beware of not dying on the crackback, so that is a thing, but it could help break a board stall. It could help you get some aggressive attacks. Maybe it's one of those things where your opponent has like 1 good blocker, maybe 2, but you have like 6 units that you want to swing in with. So this will enable you to like let those 2 blockers block the best things or appropriately, and then everything else gets in. So it does allow you to break a board state. It's good in development. Like if you get this down on turn 3, your opponent's hard pressed to do something, and it's great on defense. Like a 4/4 for 3 is great. It's a cheap cost, so much like what we just talked about for the Mandrake, it helps stabilize you and allow you to get up to 2 power very quickly, or 2 spells in 1 turn. So I think that is quite beneficial. So yeah, I think Nash is probably a B. I think he's a B. Muster is very rare, but if you do trigger it once or twice in a game, probably, you know, using a spellcraft weapon, it might be enough to get you there. You know, and 7 damage is relevant. Yeah, I think Nash can be a B. I think the fact that just getting a 4/4 for 3 is great and completely serviceable. I like it, so I'll give him a B. Moving on, we have Waystone Fragment. This is a relic at rare for 4 time, and your units have a +1/+1. All right, so that's super powerful, right? We've already discussed how great Horn of Plenty is in the previous format. Zenon Obelisk has done a ton of work in Constructed, and that thing's a bomb in Limited. So this one's right up there. I think that already adds to it. And then it has Spellcraft 3, and you play Gathering Lights. Gathering Lights, play 2 1/1 wisps, then you gain 1 life for each of your units. That card is awesome. I think this card is absolutely fantastic. It's going to give you some chump blockers if you need to. It's going to help develop your board. It will pump your team, sometimes being enough to completely tip the scales in your favor. You can play it on 4 just fine, and later in the game it has an effect that is quite relevant. Helps you come back if you're in a position where you're extremely defensive because your life total is low. It'll allow you to gain some life, maybe get back into this game. Helps your flyers beat down on theirs. Yeah, Waystone Fragment is great. I think it is fantastic. My only concern about not giving it an A is the fact that on a minimal board state, it does very little, obviously. Let's say worst case scenario, you have no units, so that's a thing, right? But let's say you have 2 units. You play this, then you gain +2/+2 on the board, which is not great, not horrible. later on. Obviously, let's say if it's late in the game, you guys have made a lot of aggressive trades and you play it, then it could be a little bit better. But yeah, so I think it's a B. I think Waystone Fragment is a solid B because it definitely needs a little help based on your board state is what's going to make it good or not. So on an empty board state, it's not so much. It's okay in development. If you drop it on 4, I don't think you're completely unhappy about that because all your guys after that are going to scale very well. So yeah, overall, Waystone Fragment, you get a solid B from the Jedi. Moving on to another cycle, we have the Listeners. The Listeners have Invoke, and they're all units, they're all legendary, and they all require triple influence of their respective factions. So for example, Woda Grodov's Listener will require triple time influence, and they all have Summon Invoke their respective faction. So Woda has Invoke Time. What this means is when you summon this unit, you will get a selection screen of one relic, one attachment, one unit, and one spell of that respective faction. So you're able to pick the one you want, and it will go into your hand. So that already puts you up a card on each listener. They typically have some additional text, so I will go over Woda. Overall, I think they're great. Woda, Grodov's Listener, is a Mystic at Legendary, a 2/3. It costs 4 triple time. Summon, Invoke Time, like we just discussed. Mastery 5, it gets a +3/+3, so it becomes a 5/6, which is solid. And Invoke Time again. And it has yet more text. Pay 8 to give Woda a +3/+3 this turn. So if you get up to 8 power and he's still alive, you are able to pump him to trigger his mastery in one swing, should that be the case. And then he has the option of giving you 2 cards. Presumably stuff that will help you in the situation you're currently in. Of note, there is a chance that the card you invoke or select from the first invoke could help Woda achieve the second mastery and the second mastery and the second invoke. So that's something to think about. I like Woda. I think you are a little understated for a 2/3 for 4, but the fact that you are getting a card off of him right away more than covers for the additional 1. Yeah, because we've played 3 for a 2/3 plenty of times. So you're paying 1 extra power for a card. That is absolutely awesome. And typically, of course, someone say that there's typically algorithms where the computer tries to hook you up with cards that are somewhat relevant, but I can neither confirm nor deny that. And the fact that on the card itself has a way of generating or helping you get its mastery, I think is phenomenal. I like Woda Grodov's Listener a ton, so I'm going to give him a solid A. I think Woda is absolutely awesome. He's great in the early game. He's great in the late game. I dig it. And in fact, I feel like he gets even better in the late game because you have slightly more ways of triggering mastery, and you have a better understanding of what's left in your deck and the board state and your opponent's deck to have a better, more information to influence your invoke selection. So yeah, Woda Grodov's Listener, you are an A. Next up, we have Anthem of Grodov. This is a slow spell at Legendary for 5 triple time. And each unit in your hand gets a +4/+4 and endurance. So this card is interesting because of the fact that +4/+4 and endurance is super strong. If you guys remember Withstand from the previous format, that was completely backbreaking. Now, the difference there is it was a fast spell, so you were able to use it as a pseudo combat trick in most cases. But so the stat line in of itself and the endurance is quite relevant. That's super strong, right? And the transition is that you're still paying 5 for that ability, but now you can play this in a manner to give more than 1 unit. You can give 2, 3, maybe even 4 units in your hand, +4/+4 and endurance, which is absolutely backbreaking. But let's cover the downside, shall we? A, worst case scenario, you have no units in your hand and that thing's just sitting there. B, the unit in your hand is like a 2/2, so you're making a 6/6 endurance, which is not bad, but you're taking 2 turns to do it, and your opponent may or may not see that coming. Of course, the other side is the fact that it costs 5, so there is a good chance you are going to be taking your entire turn off to do this. In the perfect world, you see it in your opening hand, And on turn 5, you can play it, but let's face it, you've played something on 2, 3, and 4. You've already played 3 units from your hand. What are you going to do? Sandbag like 2 units and do nothing except stand behind your lonely 2/2 until you're able to play this? So there is a tempo swing. Of course, if you're in a board stall and you have to keep deploying units to stem the bleeding or stop your opponent from attacking into you, and then you draw Anthem of Grodoff, like, that's a bad thing too. So best case scenario, this thing wins you the game by pumping up 3 of your units, adding +12, and triple endurance to your deck, which is insane. Bad news is that it's just super clunky and you can't make it happen. The question is, I guess, is if you are okay with this working on 1 unit. That being said, your opponent sees it coming as well. Let's say you're at 7 power and you have a 2-drop, right? That's about the tightest play you can make, where you play Anthem of Grodoff, then you immediately play your 2/2 that is now a 6/6 endurance, right? But if you play Anthem of Grodoff, right, let's say you have 2 4-drops in your hand, or a 4 and your bomb 6, right? You play Anthem of Grodoff, now those 2 cards are insane, but your opponent just saw you play them. So if they have a removal spell, or they know they have one in their deck, they can adjust their play accordingly to get to that. So I don't want to say it's a win more card, but I also don't think it's absolutely amazing when you're behind. I think it helps at parity when you are able to maybe sandbag 1 or 2 units hoping to draw it, or you keep it in your hand waiting to draw 2 units. That's okay, but even then, maybe if the board is too stalled, you really want to put it on the unit with evasion, and you've already played those. It combos really well with exalted units, that's for sure, so there's an upside to it. Man, this is a very interesting card. In your racing, I feel like it costs you too much. You're taking a full turn off in a racing scenario to pump your team. Yeah, that would help, but you're taking a turn off, not developing the board. Your opponent swings, you swing back mediocrely. Then the next turn you get to deploy a unit that could or may not be able to block your opponent's units. And then finally, a third turn is when you're finally able to attack with that unit, and then it stays back and blocks. So yeah, I think Anthem of Grodoff is too clunky. I am not denying its power. So with that, I think I'm just going to give it an even C. I think Anthem of Grodoff is a C. By all means, let me know in the comments below what you think it is, but I just think it's too clunky. I do not deny its power level, but I think the tempo swing in it and the variance of it is just too much. So Anthem of Grodoff, you are a C. Next up, we have Merizo. I like Merizo. Merizo, Gladiator Hero. He is a 7/7 giant at rare for 7 time. He comes with Exalted, so that already gives you a little bit of his insurance policy for it being a 7-drop. So it's a vanilla 7/7 in some regards, but also quite good because should your opponent deal with him and he dies, well, you're giving a +7/+7 weapon to something else. That being said, he does not have Exalted, so he is a big dumb unit. So your opponent could choose to simply just chump block him. But there's more text. It says Mastery 7, or Mastery 10, I'm sorry, I saw too many 7s. Mastery 10, play 3 units from the top 10 cards of your deck, then discard the rest. So first off, I do want to mention that you are going through 10 cards of your deck, okay? So in a late game scenario, should you be in some kind of attrition battle, there is a slim chance that you just added a hole or cut your clock as far as your deck and being able to deck yourself in a big way. Okay, you probably cut a big chunk of time. Excuse me. Beware when playing against decks that are trying to mill you out or have incidental mill, because now you make it a real threat. There are other commons that we've talked about that do take large chunks of your deck at a time, and most of them are incidental. They're not purpose, they just kind of happen when you're naturally playing your game. So keep that in mind. That's my disclaimer on Merizo. Now, that being said, this guy only has to attack 1 time plus a pump spell, or block plus a pump spell, or simply attack or block twice to trigger his mastery. And that's a lot. Your opponent has to deal with that. Like, that makes chump blocking a bit of an issue. And then you get potentially 3 cards. Granted, you can't decide what those cards are, so you can easily just draw your 2 drops. But either way, you're drawing 3 cards off the top of your deck that all impact the board in some form or fashion. That seems really strong to me. So what does it boil down to, right? You could whiff. I mean, of course, I highly doubt that in limited. Like 10 cards is a good portion of your deck. And considering that most limited decks have a ton of units, I feel like you're rarely going to whiff. But that is possible. You could also hit 1 or 2 units. It's still essentially drawing you a card. Of note, though, it does mill the rest. So any combat tricks, removal spells that you were hoping to get are going to get milled. That is a consideration as well. So overall, I think Mizo is a B. I think he's going to be a little easier to cast than you think. And he is going to impact the board in one form or fashion. If he does get silenced, well, then you just have a big dumb 7/7, but it is still a 7/7. So I think he's a B. I think he's a B because of the potential upside of your opponent has to answer him or you're going to get additional cards. All right, man, these legendaries and rares are tough. Moving on to Soul's Rest. This is a legendary slow spell for 8 triple time. It has Voidbound. That's weird. It's got to be super powerful if it's giving you Voidbound. That means they really only want you playing it once. And it reads, take an additional turn after this one. Yeah, no, that's just not a thing. Like, it's a win more card, right? Like, if you're in a bad board state and you're going to die next turn, taking an additional turn really just means you're paying 8 to draw a card. So unless you have exactly one answer in your deck that you need to do to get you out of this situation, Soul's Rest is not going to be good. In a board stall, once again, just draws you another card. And of course, it being an 8-drop, it's horrible in development, but there is some additional text. It says Decimate, put each unit into its owner's hand. All right, that says something. So of note, it says each unit into its owner's hands. So it does bounce your units as well. Sometimes that will be relevant, sometimes it will not. So a long story short, this card is bad. It is an F, and I'll tell you why. 1, it is 8 power. You may or may not get there. B, even if you do decimate it to reset the board, typically you are not going to have any power left after that. So your opponent gets the first shot at using their power again, both redeploying the units that you might have bounced, as well as just playing spells and getting ahead on board. So technically you are still behind. You could choke their power a little bit. Say if they have like 3 6-drops and they're at 7 power, they're only able to play 1, but they're still able to play it first. So needless to say, I think Soul's Rest is more of a constructed staple. That being, I did try it one time in my deck just because like I needed a playable and I decided to try it. And yeah, guess what? The only game it helped me win, I was able to attack twice. I was already winning. So yeah, Soul's Rest, you are an F. And that's going to do it for our time rares and legendaries. Overall, interesting. Like I said, I had a tough time figuring things out, but I think the listeners are going to open up some very interesting gameplay. And I'm excited to see when I lose to Anthem of Grodoff from my opponent's side. But yeah, guys, that is it. Let's move on to our next faction, shall we? Justice is next up on our evaluations, and starting off with a bargain card, we have Press the Advantage. This is a slow spell at rare for 1 and a Justice. It says give one of your units Aegis. Yeah, this card would be better at, well, I guess I should finish. Bargain, hit the enemy player with 2 or more Oni, which seems extremely weird and odd to me, if I could be honest with you, because of the fact that, like, putting Aegis on an Oni seems a little weird, and 2, like, why only 1? So, like, 2 or more people have to attack, and then one person is like, I've got this, save myself. Like, it just seems extremely awkward to me. I feel like it's a flavor fail, but hey, what do I know about card design, right? But anywho, these cards are typically a little bit better with fast speed on them because they are able to negate a removal spell. Technically, it does negate a removal spell by putting Aegis preemptively, but your opponent sees it coming, so they just are like, all right, either I need to find a way to break it first, or it just, I'll just target something else. So, needless to say, I think this card is just an F. There's no reason to put it in your deck. Really, there's way better spells. I don't think this format lacks in playable spells. So, yeah, and just it's just bad. F. Moving right along, guys. Let's keep going to Shenra Unbreakable, which is seeing some serious expedition play for those of you that like constructed. I've yet to craft them yet, but I might. We'll see. Shenra Unbreakable is a 2/1 Mystic at Legendary. She is at 1 cost justice unit. So 1 in justice. So, okay. Seems okay. Let's see what's up. Invulnerable to damage on your turn. Okay. So we have a Steadfast Paladin. Okay. I mean, we have that at common. It's 1 power more, but still, what's up? Weapons and curses can't be played on Shinra. So she's a Puritan. Got it. Okay. Check. So curses not being played on her is relevant, right? She is an X1, which means that there are plenty of curses, especially disfigure, that could kill her, but they cannot because curses cannot be played on her. That also stops permafrost and, mark of shame and all that stuff. So, okay, half the removal spells in the format don't hit her. That being said, the other half still do. Weapons being played on her, all right? So that means you can't make her bigger and just keep bashing. So right now, I kind of feel like Steadfast Paladin is still better. And Mastery 8, okay. Give her a +3/+3 and Endurance. So after her Mastery triggers, she becomes a 5/4 that is invulnerable to damage on your turn and can't have curses played on her. I kind of feel like she's only good at the beginning of the game, to be honest with you guys. Like, think about how many times you've drawn Steadfast Paladin late in a game. And like, yeah, it triggers Onslaught, but this is not an Onslaught format. And you can't put weapons on her. So pump spells are the only way for her to get her mastery early. So I feel like she's good as a 1-drop or 2-drop, and that's it. So she's actually good in development, which is really odd, and I feel like just not good anywhere else. So yeah, I guess you're just gonna get a C. Shinra is a C. Sorry, Shinra. Unbreakable you might be, but you aren't breaking the format. Next up, we have Hanaka, Lore Master. This is a 1/1 Oni at rare for 2 and a Justice. Seems quite the inquisitive or intellectual Oni. I dig that. Did not realize that, but hey, we'll take it. He reads +1/+1 for each of your other Oni. All right, I could dig that if you kind of go semi into the Oni tribal. Okay. Probably looking at this guy being typically a 3/3 sounds about right. If you are like the Rakano deck, I think if you go Argent Port or even Huru, you're not gonna. It's probably gonna be closer to a 1/1 or a 2/2. But if you are Rakano, what did I say? I said Huru or Argent Port. Yeah, Rakano. I feel like this guy's gonna be a 3/3, maybe a 4/4. That might be pushing it, honestly. So a 3/3 for 2. Okay, serviceable. Of course, they could get you. I can't 100% say how it works because I know the transition of health is a little awkward or not awkward. It's just the way Eternal works, and my brain still works with magic sometimes. So to get this guy in combat, they'd have to kill your guy before damage, not after. Because I'm pretty sure if it's a 3/3, you block with a 2/2, then you kill post combat one of the other Oni, he'll still just end up being a 1/1 or 2/2, but with 1 damage left, I guess. I don't know how to articulate it correctly, but long story short, to kill him like that, you would have to drop his power or his health and attack prior to damage being dealt. Anywho, moving on, he has additional attacks. Mastery 6, draw a relic weapon of your choice from your deck. Okay, I mean, Cannon is in the format, and there are other, well, that's not a relic weapon, I'm sorry, correction, relic weapon, Trying to think of a really good relic weapon in the set, and nothing's really coming to mind. I mean, I guess the +4/+4 mask when it comes into play, the 4/4, forgot the name of it, but even that, like when you're triggering mastery, that means combat or damage has already happened, so that doesn't seem great. Plus you're drawing it, you're not playing it. Okay, correction. I think this is fine. I'm just gonna give it a C. I think it's an okay card. The tutor effect is just fine. So you're getting like an okay unit with a possible Chemo's blueprints tacked onto it for somewhat free. Yeah, I think Hanaka's a C. I'm not gonna touch on it. Let's move on. Next up, we have Lay Siege. This is a fast spell at legendary for 2 green. Ready your units. Okay. They get endurance and invulnerable to damage this turn. I'm just gonna put it at a D. I'm gonna tell you why. ready your units means that it does have the ability of surprising your opponent. When it plays in both sides. It plays good on offense, it plays good on defense in the form of the fact that it gives your guys endurance. So, well, even then, that's actually, wait, that doesn't even make sense. Because, like, if you so the way the game works, you have to have your units have to have endurance before they attack to have it refresh. You can't. No, it might be at the end of turn. Okay, never mind. Sorry, guys. I get ahead of myself sometimes, but I believe now that I'm thinking about it, endurance does not refresh your unit or ready your unit, but as long as it has endurance by the end of the turn, I think it will ready it. So never mind. It works out fine. So it's good on offense because you can attack with your team. And then after blocks, maybe there's some bad blocks, some good blocks, etc., you can play Lay Siege to make all your guys invulnerable. Plus they gain endurance, so at the end of their turn, all the ones that survived, which is all of them because they all gain invulnerable, will then be ready to block. Of course, the flip side to that is much like High Alert. If your units you attacked, and then your opponent's like, I got him, Alpha Strike, or Ace Base. You can play Lay Siege, ready all your units, so now they can block, and they get invulnerable to damage, so there is no such thing as a chump block. So those are the benefits to Lay Siege and where it could be a potential blowout. But once again, like, it doesn't help stats. So if you're facing down 2 Grodov's Favored with your 2 3/3s, guess what? This is not going to do anything. It's going to give you an additional chump block or additional block for a turn, and then it doesn't change the board state. So you're hoping to draw 1 card off the top of your deck to help you out of this situation. So yeah, with that, I think Lay Siege is a D. Like, it will be a blowout, and I'm sure I will lose this card, but at the end of the day, there's too many scenarios where it's not going to line up in your favor. It's not going to do much. So Lay Siege, you get a D. Moving right along, we have Soothing Shortbeak. This is a 3/1 Griffin at rare for 3 Justice. And it has flying. So right off the bat, you're paying 3 for a 3/1 flyer. That's done some work. That Reckless Snake thing, the 3/1, if it goes unanswered, it does some work. Of note, once again, it is an X1, and we've talked about how there are plenty of ways to deal 1 damage or -1 in this format because of the 25% appearance of X1s, and that's only at common and uncommon. So that is an issue, but it has evasion, so that does help a lot. But it also has a summon effect. Play a -1/-0 curse on 2 enemy units. So yeah, here's the thing. Makes 2 of your opponent's attackers or blockers less effective. So that's good in racing scenarios. And B, it plays 2 curses. So it also helps with curse synergies. So I think overall, Soothing Shortbeak, with it being an evasive, and 3 damage a turn is a lot. That's a bit of a beater. So I think overall, Soothing Shortbeak, with its evasion, its stat line, its cost, right? You're doing pretty good on that cost. And its synergies, both in combat racing scenarios, not so much in parity, but I guess it does stop other flyers, like 1X flyers. You can stop them from killing Soothing Shortbeak as well. So that's a thing. So yeah, I think Shortbeak's a B. I think it does more work than it seems. Like, it's one of those, the sum of its parts are equal or greater than its whole. You know what I mean? So just a 3/1 or just -1/-0 wouldn't be enough, but the fact that it's a 3/1 flyer that when it comes in deals 2 curses and shrinks their opponent's board, I think makes it a pretty solid B, actually. So, and of course it carries weapons very, very well. So good job, Soothing Shortbeak. Next up, we have the Listener for Justice. This is Ezuzi, Kodash's Listener. He is a 1/1. What the heck? Mystic at legendary for 4 triple justice. All right, his text box better be amazing because this is a little underwhelming. All right, double damage. Okay, that helps a little bit. Still, 1/1 double damage doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, granted, I will say it is justice, which means it has plenty of ways to pump it. But still, man, a 1/1 for 4? Like, ugh. Summon Invoke Justice. So, all right, you draw a card and it's double damage. All right, well, I mean, we were paying 1 power for that in the time one. This one kind of feels like you're paying 3 for a draw card, which is not good. And then Mastery 10. give it a +3/+3 and invoke. I wonder if they're all +3/+3. I gotta double check that. But anywho, so mastery 10, which still will take 2 attacks because most pump spells in this format are either 2 or 3. So if you put a +3/+3 on it, it deals 8. So yeah, man, honestly, I feel like it's a little too vulnerable, to be 100% honest with you. And the fact that it has double damage means it's really scary, so your opponent's not going to let it sit on the board very long. Yeah, guys, actually, believe it or not, I kind of feel like Azuzi's like a C-. Yeah, maybe even a D. No, I mean, double damage is relevant. It's still drawing you a card. Yeah, I guess. If it's Rakano, it's super scary because you have things that like overwhelm, or not overwhelm, what is it? Yeah, it is overwhelm, right? Rampage, I think it is, the +3/+1 in overwhelm. That makes it a bit of a beater. Yeah, fine. I'm going to give Azuzi a C-. I just don't like the fact it's a 1/1. Sorry, guys. I hate to feel that way, but I think it is what it is. All right, let's move on. Mercy of Kodash. You should have given more mercy to Azuzi. Jeez. Mercy of Kodash is a cursed relic at rare for 4 green. When the cursed player draws their second card in a turn, you draw a card. Yeah, this is for constructed, like an anti-control deck thing where they draw extra cards. You're going to see very little of this in limited. You'll have to be going up against a blue player, and then they're going to have to like have card draw spells in their deck. Yeah, no. Mercy of Kodash, sure enough. Let's move on. Age-Worn Vestige is a relic weapon, legendary relic weapon at 6 triple green. It is a +3/+9. Okay, so you're gaining at bare minimum 9 life or 9 armor for 6. Okay, all right, that's not great, but it does have 3 attack, which means you'll be able to take out, as we did in the static or statistics breakdown, that it is able to take out a total of I mean, the majority of the format, honestly, between 1, 2, and 3 powers, so that's relevant. You do have to be careful for combat tricks, but it has Spellcraft 3, so 9 total when you play this, which is kind of harsh, but, pun intended, it plays Harsh Rule. That's right, a board wipe, which we've already discussed is absolutely backbreaking in most limited games. So, I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to give it a B because of the fact that I think you are rarely going to play Harsh Rule, and the times that you are able to get up to 9 power to play Harsh Rule, it's probably going to be a stalled board state, which means that you're going to be doing as much harm to yourself as you are your opponent. I think in most cases it's just going to be a 3/9 relic weapon for 6, which I feel like in a decent board, 3/9 will do a lot of work. Seriously, like, I mean, that's 9. You can get in at least an easy 2-for-1, maybe even a 3-for-1 date based on your opponent's board. So yeah, I like Age-Worn Vestige. I think I'm going to give it a B. I think it is a solid piece of removal. All right, let's move right along. Of note, obviously the triple justice in it, but I don't think that's a big of a deal considering it's a 6-drop as well as it being a 2-color format primarily. So yeah, I like Age-Worn Vestige. Let's move right along to Soul Flame Rider. This is a 6/6 Paladin Griffin at rare for 9 and 1 justice. 9 though, what? It has flying, it has endurance, okay, but it's still 9. We just talked about 9 with a spellcraft weapon. Flying and endurance. All right, what else does it say? Soul Flame Rider costs 3 less for each time you've decimated your power this game. So it is one of the decimate payoffs, which is primarily Argenport, but I believe it can go in any justice deck because it has just a single justice influence. That does add some flexibility to it, which I like. 6/6 flyer and endurance is awesome. Straight up, like, very few things are going to be able to tussle with this thing. It beats most dragons. And the fact that it has endurance means that you can just keep bashing in the air and not have to worry about them cracking you back because it will stay back on defense too. So the question is, how many decimates do you have to have in your deck for this guy to work? Because playing him as a 9-drop is not a thing. If that's the case, he's probably a D-. But the fact that you can decimate one time, he becomes 6. If you decimate twice, he is going to cost 3. But I mean, now you've also decimated 2 of your power. So that's... So typically on the baseline for this guy, you're going to want to decimate 1 time per game to make sure he's 6. So how many decimate are you happy in your deck? I would probably honestly go with about 4 plus. I have 3, you have a chance of doing it, but I don't think consistently enough for it to matter or to rely on it. So 3 is fine. 3 is stretching it. 4 plus is best. And then 2 and less, I don't think you should play it, because there are going to be too many games where you don't decimate. Plus, not only do you have to draw the decimate card, but you have to be in a situation where you want to play that card and play that card with decimate. So there's quite a bit of requirements for this. That being said, though, so if you have anything less than 3, if you have 3 or less decimate in your deck, Soul Flame Rider's probably somewhere between a C plus and a B minus. But if you have 4 decimate and up, then I want to say that Soul Flame Rider is an A. The reason being is a 6/6 body is huge. It can help you when you're behind by stabilizing your board. It has evasion, so it can block opponents' flyers if that's how they're beating you. And it can end the game in short order. 6 chunks of 6 life a turn is huge. So I think overall, Soul Flame Rider is an A should you have 4 plus decimate in your deck. Yeah, I think that card's great. And with that, that is the end of Justice. Wow, some super swingy cards in Justice. Like, I feel like Justice was either A's or F's. Like, they either hit home runs or they're like, what are you even doing in this set? But fun overall. Super excited to draft with each and every one of these cards. Well, maybe not each and every one of them. There's a couple that I'm kind of like, meh. So, yeah. But, yeah, great. Justice looks medium. All right, next up we have Primal. And man, what is up with these first cards coming down? All right, our first one in Primal is Socrato, a Fury Heart. Oh man, I don't think I have the heart for this one. This is a 4/5 Druid Dire Beast at Legendary. His 1 and a Primal. That's it. You get a 4/5 for 1. What? What is going on here? Though the artwork is sick. Kind of reminds me of Garrick from Magic, for those people that know that. That's probably where they got it from, to be honest with you. But anyway, moving on. At the end of your turn, Socrato deals 7 damage to himself. What? He's a 4/5 and he deals 7 damage to himself. So you play him on turn 1, he kills himself? What? Muster. Okay, yeah, that's already a great keyword. Socrato can't be killed this turn. So you have to muster, you have to jump through hoops just to stop this guy from killing himself? What? That being said, I guess if I'm playing devil's advocate here, you do have the, shoot, now I forgot his name now, but Pock Slingshot. That would make him a 5/8, so he couldn't kill himself, but he still does 7 damage to himself, so you can't even attack, because if they block with a 1/1, then like he kills himself. What? No, we're not spending any time on this. Like, you're not gonna sit here and like metal him every turn. Yeah, no, Socrato, you are an F. Constructed like a niche card or something like that. I'm sure there's an achievement for it. Let's move on. All right, thank goodness. All right, here we go. Blitrock or Blitrock. Blitrock. Let's go with Blitrock. Blightrock. Ooh, Blightrock sounds kind of cool. Blightrock. Linray's listener is a 1/3 Mystic at Legendary. It is the listener for Primal. 4 Primal. Once again, a 1/3. Pay 3 to deal 1 damage to an enemy. That's it. You can do it more than once a turn, and you can do it to someone's face. You can do it to one of their units. You cannot do it to yourself, so it doesn't trigger any kind of weird shenanigans like that. Summon, invoke a Primal, obviously, and Mastery 3. So that's the lowest Mastery we've seen. And yes, once again, it is +3/+3 and invoke. So I think that's the niche for it. The Mastery cost might change, but they all get a +3/+3 and invoke another Primal or another spell from their faction. I actually like Blitrock. I'll tell you why. Once again, X1s are a thing, and she deals 1 damage, and it also gives you a way of evasion where you're still able to trigger her mastery and not have to attack if you don't have to, and you still get your card. So Honestly, and it's an alternate win con. If it's a stalled board state, you can just sit there and keep pinging your opponent or picking off their units. And yeah, I kind of like Blitrock, actually. Blitrock. I gotta figure out what name I like the most. What do you call her? Let me know in the comments below. Anywho, Blitrock. I really do. I think that ping effect is quite powerful, believe it or not. And if you should somehow be able, like, let's say you're in Elysian and you slap the deadly on her, Viper's Bite, so she has deadly and she just starts machine gunning your opponent's stuff down. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily think that's too far off from Magical Christmas Land, to be honest with you, or too much into Magical Christmas Land. You're talking about a legendary, fine, but then a common and a color pair that is respectable in this format. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of like her, you know. And then the Mastery 3 means if you're Huru, you know, you have multiple pump spells to trigger Mastery right away, so you get another card back from her. Yeah, I like her. I'm actually going to give her an A. I think Blitrock is an A. Yeah, good job, Blitrock. Blitrocus? Blitroke. Yeah, either way, she gets an A from the Jedi. I like her. All right, moving right along, we have Daring Griffin. So now we're starting to see the Daring may lead into this kind of sacrificial thing, because we have the Daring Pioneer, I believe. But anywho, Daring Griffin is a Griffin at rare for 4 primal. It is a 3/2. It has Flying, Exalted, and Reckless. So 3 battle skills. One of them is less exciting in the form of Reckless. But hey, what are you going to do? It does have Exalted, so at least you have a little bit of a cushion when it dies. It reads, when the enemy player plays a spell, sacrifice Daring Griffin to negate it. Man, I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to tell you why. A 3/2 flyer with Exalted is pretty darn good for 4. And even if it's double primal, if you think about the common, we're paying 5 for a 2/1 flyer with Exalted. So you're paying additional power for a +1/+1. Yeah, I think this card is good. I think it's a solid B because of the fact that your opponent can play any spell to include a combat trick to kill it, but you're getting your monies back in the form of the Exalted giving another unit +3, +2, and flying. So there's that, and sometimes it's pretty awkward to play around it. I think my opponent, I had like a legit, let's say like Fell Ritual or Eviscerate in my hand. I was like, cool, I'll take care of their bomb. And then they played a Daring Griffin. So now I had to wait until I had a combat trick or another spell to eat the Daring Griffin before I could play the removal spell. So I think there's additional power there. And the fact that, now, one thing I will say is that you are not able to choose when it's sacrificed. It just means it's immediately sacrificed. So should your opponent have like a snowball, they can play the snowball to kill Daring Griffin. So that is that. But if they don't have a spell, it's late in the game, like it might stick around and get in for some damage. So yeah, Daring Griffin is a solid B from me. Moving right along, we have Inspired Prank. This is a slow spell at rare for 4 and a primal. Play a 1/1 snowman with +1/+1 for each other spell in your void. So encouragement for the Spells Matters deck, which is not necessarily really a thing in this limited format so far. I'm sure I will draft it, just not yet. And of course, Bargain. So this is the bargain card for primal. Hit the enemy player with 2 or more Yeti. Okay, I mean, seems kind of medium, right? Play a 1/1 with a +1 for each. So let's say you played 2 tricks, like a removal spell. Wait a minute, hold on. So for each other spell in your void, so it doesn't even count Inspired Prank? Oh, no. Okay, so it's okay. So it does not get the +1/+1 is not like a static state-based effect. It doesn't rise and fall based on the number of spells in your void. It happens when you play Inspired Prank. So it won't count itself. So if you have 0 spells, it's a 1/1. If you have like 2 spells, it's a 3/3. Yeah, no. Inspired Rank, you're an F. No, it's not a thing. We're just going to move on. All right, next up we have Tidal Forces. This is a Cursed Relic at rare for 4 primal. And the artwork seems pretty darn cool. I kind of like it. And it reads, at the start of your turn, if the cursed player has 2 or more cards in their hand, play a 4/4 Living Wave with charge. Sacrifice it at the end of the turn. This card's pretty good. I think it is good in development because you're getting a free 4/4 every turn. It is so it's kind of a do nothing on turn 4, but at the same time you're immediately starting to get 4/4s because there's no way on turn 4 they're going to have less than 2 cards. Actually, it's 2 or more, so they have to be down to 1 card. So the only time this might be kind of meh, even when you're top decking, it forces your opponent to like have to play all their cards. They play all their power, and then they can only keep like 1 trick in their hands. So it kind of limits the amount of things they could have against you. They can't sandbag all these tricks, or they're, you know. Now, granted, if they have like a, once again, let's go back to our Grodaw's Favored, right? Grodaw's Favored can block this all day. So it isn't that great because it can be stonewalled fairly quickly, but you are getting free attacks and it gives you a good target for your combat tricks. It helps you like potentially like 2-for-1 your opponent somewhat. You know what I mean? Like this has some major upside. It has some major downside as well. Obviously, once again, you could get to a point where it's top decking. I think it's probably just a C. I think it's going to win you some games, and it's going to feel like it's just an awesome A if you've managed to dwindle your opponent's board so they can't effectively block this and you're just beating. But I do think there's ways of stopping this, and there's sometimes where it's going to work, sometimes it's not. So I think I'm just going to take the safer route, more conservative, and put Tidal Forces probably about a C+. I think a C+ is going to work for me. Yeah, Tidal Forces, you get a C+. Let me know. Every live on Twitch every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Let me know if you guys played Tidal Forces and how it worked out for you. Moving right along, we have Prodigious Sorcery. This is a fast spell at rare. It is cost 5 primal, and this card is doing some work in constructed for sure. I've died to this card plenty of times, but it reads, draw 2 spells that deal damage from your void. So they have to be something like that horrible 1 card, the Cost of Greed or whatever, the deal 1 damage for 3 and you draw a card. What's another one? Char is another one in the format, Lightning Strike, cards like that. And Decimate, they get double damage. So the fact that there are very few cards in this format that go face makes me feel like this card isn't that strong. That being said, if you do kind of build your deck around it a little bit and you combo it off with that whatever Cost of Greed, now all of a sudden Cost of Greed deals 2, maybe 6 damage or 4 if you have that like a +1 spell damage effect. Then you get to draw 4 cards. That seems kind of good, but typically in constructed you see this with like Torch and what's the other one that goes face that's like super cheap? Shoot, I don't remember now. Anywho, yeah, I think in limited there's not enough cards to facilitate this always drawing you 2 cards and doing a ton of damage. It will finish the game for you sometimes. There's Streets of Flames. So Streets of Flames, Char does not work with, I mean, it does work with Conflagrate, but that, I mean, Conflagrate dealing 6 damage is quite relevant. So it's strong. It just, you also have to have like 2 spells in your void. You may not see them and see this. I think it's a D. I think you're just it's too much of a build around for minimal payoff. You know what I mean? Like you have to see this card, then you have to make sure you're drafting cards that most people are going to draft highly as well. And then like what you probably want your deck to have somewhere about, honestly, like 7 spells to deal damage for you to get like your money back on this. If not, you're only going to see 1. Yeah, I think Prodigious Sorcery is a D. I think it's just too narrow and it's too hard to facilitate this at max value. I mean, the ceiling's awesome, but it's just not quite there. Next up, we have Spore Fern. This is a fun card for sure. This is a 5/5 Mandrake at Legendary for 6 primal. Has Aegis and Overwhelm. I like it. That's solid. You were paying 1 for Aegis and Overwhelm. You love to see Overwhelm on bigger units. I think 5/5 is a bigger unit. It has Aegis, so it protects itself, so you don't have to worry about it dying immediately as soon as you play it. It has Mastery 10 for the rest of the game. When you play a spell, play an additional copy of it. What? Of note, it says for the rest of the game, not while you have Spore Fern in play. So if you trigger the mastery and then after the mastery has to survive its mastery, then they manage to kill it, you still get double of every spell in your deck. So what, you probably want to play 2 spells, and let me tell you right now, I've not played this card in limited, but in constructed, that is a super powerful ability. Getting 2 draw strengths, getting 2 card draws, 2 barrel throughs, like anything doubled for free is super powerful. And it's so hard to play around. Cut ties, you know what I mean? Like, shoot, even for example, if we do like Caleb's favor, right? And just two to the face, all of a sudden you're doing 4 to the face and getting 2 sigils. Like, Overwhelm Rampage, Conflagrate, like 2 Conflagrates for 3 when you're used to playing 7 for that. Yeah, I think this card is really good. And what's the baseline, right? Worst case scenario, you paid 6 for a 5/5. That trades with both Grodov's Favored and the other Mandrake, the Majestic Mandrake or whatever. So yeah, this card is good. I like Burspawn Fern, and your opponent is hard pressed to try to make sure this thing doesn't get its Aegis or its Mastery. So I like it. I think it's an A. I think it's an A. It can't win you the game on your own, but it kind of can as well. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think this card is good. I'm gonna give it an A. It is a little meme-ish, don't get me wrong, but even without the Mastery trigger, I think it's gonna do some work, and so I like it. Plus you have Exalted, so you can give this guy lifesteal or flying or, you know, things like that. You give it Killer, that'd be good. Yeah, I like it. I think this card, yeah, there's another one. You get to play 2 killer spells. Yeah. Burspawn, you are an A. Next up, we have Flight of Makar. This is a slow spell at legendary for 6 primal. Says transform each unit into a 1/1 Raven with flying. So it is somewhat of a board wipe, but not quite, because you do not remove the units from play, but you are transforming them into 1/1 Ravens. This is on symmetrical, so it happens to your units as well as theirs. So it's really good if you are able to if you're falling behind, this is a good way to stabilize to an extent. If you're falling behind on units, it may stem the bleeding, where let's say they had 2 5/5s and a 4/4 in play. Now they only have 3 1/1s, but there's still 3 1/1s. I have still lost or seen people lose after playing this card based on what happens next. They are evasive flyers, so they could continue to beat. But since it turns both sides of the board into Ravens, it's a little bit better when you are able to see it coming and adjust the board state to it, i.e. sandbagging specific units. But if it's kind of one of those things where you both have 5 units on the board, you're both staring at each other, but you're kind of worried that their units are better, or maybe they're able to keep attacking into you for said reason, then all of a sudden you can Flight of Makar, and now all of the units are Ravens. So you have 5 Ravens that can block their 5 Ravens. And so you kind of mitigate a little bit of the combat trick action. Overall, I don't think this card is very strong. There has to be a specific board state where it's hyper effective. In most cases, it's just kind of medium. So I'm going to give Flight of Makar a D. Plus it's 6. Like, that's slightly, like, you can't just stall. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll let them keep playing things and then turn them all to 1/1s, because like 6 turns is a lot. So I'm going to give Flight of Makar a D. And our last primal card is Reality Breaker. Super cool name, super cool artwork. Want to see it in premium. But this is a 7/7 elemental at rare for 8 triple primal. All right, let's see what happens here. 7/7 for 8. No combat or battle skills, no keywords, but it has a summon effect. Deal 1 damage to a unit. 1 damage to a unit. That's it. Doesn't seem exciting, but we will read the rest of the card. If that damage kills the unit, choose an additional unit and repeat this process with damage increased by 1. So what this means is you play it, you ping a 1, first base case scenario, easiest one. You ping a 1-drop, it dies. You get to ping something with 2 now. If there is something, an X2, you can ping the X2, it will die, and now you get to ping something for 3. And you can continue going up the chain until you are not able to kill something. That's baseline, right? Now you are able to combo this off obviously post combat. So you come in, your opponent makes some blocks, some favorable, some unfavorable, etc., etc. Then you play Reality Breaker, and you have the potential of finishing off their team, because maybe they didn't have an X1, but maybe after blocks you are able to do like kill a unit with 1 damage left or 1 health left, then kill a unit with 2 health left. And typically after that, I think after combat, 3 damage will finish off just about any blocker. So you have the ability to machine gun down your entire opponent's board. There is some strength to that, but of course now we're talking about maybe not Magical Christmas Land. That seems pretty doable. Once again though, this is an 8 cost unit, and baseline, if it's an empty board, it doesn't even deal with the 1 damage to face, and you can only go to units, so you can't like kill 3 things and then finish off going 4 to face. So there's a downside to it. It has the potential for upside, but baseline, it is a 7/7 for 8, and that's it. And that seems pretty darn low to me. Not enough for 8, but I cannot deny its upside, so I'm probably just gonna leave it at a C. And I really want to give it closer to a D, to be honest with you, because just a vanilla 7/7 with no real payoff at 8 seems like a lot. But once again, there are going to be scenarios where it's going to be able to pick off 1 or 2 units, and you're feeling pretty good about that for the most part, hopefully. So, it can combo off with like curses and things like that as well. I hate that it can't go face at some point, because even just going into play and dealing one the face would be nice. Maybe it breaks Aegis, but yeah, so Reality Breaker, you get a flat C. And that's going to do it for Primal, guys. So Primal has a lot of very niche cards. A couple of bombs for sure, but I think overall really nichey on the cards, which I guess they'd be fun to draft around and build around, but not too much exciting things for Primal, sadly. Our lead card for Shadow is going to be Bloodseeker. This is a 2/3 elf at rare for 1 and a shadow. So like we talked about that on common in time, this is a 2/3 for 1 is good. That's pretty solid stats already, like way over rate. You're happy for a 2/2. But it has some additional text. At the end of your turn, Bloodseeker deals 1 damage to you. That seems like a bit of a problem. But even more text, +2/+2 for each player with 10 or more cards in their void. So if you mill your opponent out for 10 at some point, let's say you melees them and they trade off, etc., combat trick, then all of a sudden Bloodseeker is a 4/5. And that goes the same for you. And should both players, both you and your opponent, have over 10 cards in their void, then it becomes a 6/7. That's really good for a 1-drop, but the problem is that I feel like it's going to be, you really capitalize on Bloodseeker when it is early game, right? Getting it down on turn 1 and then making it just a 4/5 is pretty powerful. Like, it's going to be a pretty strong beater, especially if you have a couple of combat tricks to kind of continue to get it through if your opponent tries to double block it or maybe plays 1 big unit. So that's kind of interesting. That being said, when you draw it late, a 5/6 is still, or a 6/7 is still a relevant body. Blocks quite a few things. The only thing it really straight up dies to is the Mandrake and the Banewolf. Everything else has to double block it and stuff like that. So that is something, but it is pinging you for damage every turn, so it's not necessarily the best in a stalled board state. I'm not really sure where to put Bloodseeker, because I know there is a mill deck in the format. I think I'm just going to give Bloodseeker a C. I think it's a solid C. Next up, we have Lothrai Dead Drop. This is a slow spell at rare for 3 and a shadow. And it reads, draw 2 cards. Alright, I'm down for that. Wisdom, sort of. You take 2 damage. Whoa, hold on. For each enemy unit? What? Bargain. Hit the enemy player with 2 or more elves. So let's go ahead and negate the bargain part. We don't really care about that. So is drawing 2 cards in shadow good enough? I think it's fine. You know what though? I'm actually just going to end up giving it a D. And I'll tell you why. Drawing 2 cards is good and you want to have it. But what's the threshold for this? If your opponent has 2 units on the board, you're going to take 4 damage. Right? That's quite relevant. If they have 3, you're taking 6. That's huge. There's going to be plenty of times where you're just not going to be able to play Lothrai dead drop, which actually makes me feel like it might be actually an F. But there are going to be times where you draw it early and play it early and you're up a card on your opponent, so that's a good thing. Yeah, I'm just going to give it a solid D. I really don't think you want to play it, but I could see windows where it will just draw you a card. Maybe you take 2, maybe you don't. I just think the fact that there are times where you're not going to be able to play it, and Lethride dead drop will be a dead card. All right, moving right along, we have a Spectral Scythe. This is a 2/3 +2/+3 relic weapon at rare for 3 shadow, and it has unblockable. That's right, which means typically you would have to remove all the units before you can go face with a weapon. Well, guess what? Spectral Scythe does not need that. Spectral Scythe can go right through your opponent's units and smack them in the face, which is quite beneficial if you have a stalled board state of your own and are able to defend Spectral Scythe. So I like this card quite a bit. 2/3 weapon for 3 probably means it could potentially get you a 2 for 1, you know, take out a flyer and then take out like another small unit or something like that. I do like the fact that it can go face. So like we talked about earlier, it will really help you get in that last bit of damage. Not really sure how much attack bonus and armor bonus there is in this format. Overall, I'm going to give a Spectral Scythe a C. I think it's a good card. It could potentially help you finish the game, but 2 points a turn is not nothing, but it's not huge either. So yeah, Spectral Scythe, you get a C. Next up, we have a Waylay. This is a slow spell at rare for 3 and a shadow. The enemy player discards each copy of a unit or sight of your choice from their deck. Decimate, steal the enemy player's void. So typically in limited, this is probably going to be a 1 for 1, which is not horrible. Of note, when this pops up, I do not believe you get to see how many of the units there are or sight. So it's not like you can look and then there'll be like 1, 1, 1, 2, 4, and then you're like, oh, I'll take the unit with 4. Pretty sure it just ends up giving you all the cards you can take and you're able to pick one. The problem with this is essentially, yes, best case scenario, you take their bomb away, right? If they have like a legendary in their deck, you get to take that out without having to spend a removal spell on it, etc., etc. Problem with that is that it takes it from their hand or from their deck, period. So if it's in their hand already, you're not going to get it, which means it's somewhat card disadvantage, because taking card of their deck, yes, they may have drawn it, but they may have also not drawn it. So I know all of us have had experiences where we have this bomb legendary or rare, and maybe out of X amount of games, we only see it a third of those games. So that could be one of those games. So you're spending a card to theoretically take a card out of your opponent's deck. Whether they would have seen it or not, you know what I mean, is left to be unseen, I guess. So that's why I think Waylay actually is not that good in limited. In constructed, I think it's strong. Steal the enemy player's void, that could be somewhat relevant. Since you are in shadow, you have immortalized, so there is a little bit of bonus of taking the best card out of their deck, putting it into yours, and you could potentially get it back later. That being said, I'm still not high on it. I don't think I would completely fault you for playing it, so I'll probably give it a D, D-. But yeah, you probably don't want to be playing Waylay. Moving right along, we have the listener for Shadow. This is Incarnus, Makar's listener. This is a 3/3 Mystic at Legendary for 4 triple Shadow. Unblockable. There we go. Heyo, that's a keyword I like. Summon, Invoke Shadow, obviously. And Mastery 9, +3/+3, and Invoke again. So that is confirmed once again. They all get a +3/+3 and invoke their respective factions. This one seems like one of the most efficient ones or easy ones to trigger because of the fact that she has unblockable. So now your opponent has to straight up remove her to stop her from triggering her second mastery. Of course, if you're comboed in Argenport or in Stone Scar and are able to pump her attack, she'll get there quicker. Yeah, I think Incarnus Makar's listener is great. Even if you don't get the invoke, you still draw a card off the first one, and it's unblockable, so it's going to finish your opponent off in short order. So Incarnus Makar's listener, you get an A from the Jedi. Yes, A. Ha ha ha. Next up, we have Carvet Solar Dragon. This is a 4/5 Nightmare Dragon at Legendary for 6 Shadow. It has lifesteal, it has flying, and your cultists have exalted. That's right. So automatically all your cultists have exalted as long as Carvet is in play. Summon, play a 1/1 cultist for each different name amongst your dragons. So right off the bat, Carvet will make a 1 cultist on his own. Should you have another dragon in play, you will make 2. If you have 4 dragons in play, clanning Carvet, you'll make 4. All right, pretty solid. I mean, helps you block, right? It makes a bunch of 1/1s. Plus, they have Exalted, so the more that these cultists like chump block to gum up the board on the ground, Carvet and your other dragons are getting bigger and able to deal more damage to their opponent. So that's awesome. And I do like the fact that it makes cultists to stabilize you. It has lifesteal to get you back in a race should you be either racing or be losing. And it has Mastery 12. Your cultists get a +3/+3. Of note, this works similar to the 2/2 Kirin, where it is a just happens once effect. They all get the +3/+3 permanently, and then that is it. Any subsequent cultist will not get the bonus. And even if Carvet leaves, those cultists will still get the bonus. So not too bad. Overall, really solid card. I like Carvet quite a bit. So he's going to get a solid A. I like it. Like I said, it's going to help you win more if you're ahead. It could potentially break a board stall because of the evasion, as well as giving your cultist adding to the board and giving them Exalted. So now your opponent may or may not want to attack into them to pump up your evasive units or unblockable units. And the Mastery just continues to win. If you're falling behind, it gives you a bunch of chump blockers and the lifesteal to come back in the game. So I like it. Caravet, Solar Dragon, you get an A. Next up, we have Eremot, Death Incarnate. This is a 5/8 Nightmare at Legendary for 7 Shadow. Phenomenal artwork. Love it. He has Unblockable. It has Unblockable. So 5/8 Unblockable will end your opponent's day in short order. When an enemy unit hits you, kill it. That's it, literally. Kill it. Period. That's amazing. So he has like infinite removal spells tacked on to himself. Granted, you have to make sure you have enough life total, but every unit is only going to be able to hit you once. Doesn't matter the size. Also, when Eremot attacks, the enemy player discards the top 10 cards of their deck, which he doesn't even have to make contact with your opponent. Granted, he's unblockable, so he will. And I think the 5 damage will actually end your opponent before the milling does. But, I mean, these are 45 card decks, right? And you figure by the time he's dropped, there've probably been 15, somewhere between 10 to 15 cards used up between your hands and drawing cards. So 3 attacks from Eremot and game's over. So yeah, Eremot is a straight up A+. Like, this card is amazing. If he resolves, like, I find it hard to believe you could not win that game because your opponent now can only attack you once with their units. He's going to get in and start beating them down, so they have to kind of attack. Like, oh man, if they do not have a clean piece of removal, like Fell Ritual for this guy, and heaven forbid you should have him immortalized. Oh boy. Yeah, Eremot, Death Incarnate, you get an A+. You are awesome. Noxious Wyvark is a 3/4 Nightmare Dragon at rare for 7 Shadow. Flying and summon. Each unit without flying gets a -3/-3 this turn. So on the surface, this card looks good because you're getting a decent body, 3/4 flyer. That's probably about 4 or 5 cost, and then paying the additional 3 or 2 for the the malediction, pseudo malediction, right? Problem I've seen with this card, and granted my evaluation has changed a little bit because of the fact that I have actually played with this card, but it just doesn't do enough on 7. It comes down way too late. I would have evaluated this card better in a vacuum without knowing the format, but in my experiences both playing it and playing against it, the -3/-3 does do some work, but not enough. It only hits flying units. So if your opponent has flyers on his side, even 2/1s, they will not die. And this is a world of dragons and birds and griffins. 2, it's turn 7, 8, or 9. So there's going to be some bigger units. So it's not even going to be a clean board wipe. So yes, obviously you can attack. Maybe your opponent blocks in a couple of ways that make it to where their bigger unit will remove this. And people are not going to play around this because it is a rare. But overall, Noxious Wyvark just has seemed to underperform for me. And so I kind of want to, it's probably still better than a C, but I don't think it's like a solid B either. Let's go with C+. We'll put Noxious Wyvark at a C+. If you think otherwise, definitely let me know in the comments below or live on Twitch every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tune in, let me know if you've had better experiences with the card. But like I said, deceptively, Noxious Wyvark will get a C+ from me. Next up in our final shadow card is Vicious Rejuvenation, which is seeing some janky constructed play with a lot of fun and some great screenshots. This card is a slow spell at legendary that's 8 shadow, 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 so triple shadow, and it simply says swap your health with the enemy player's health. So best case scenario, you're not even racing, honestly. You don't want to race. Your opponent's just been bashing you in the face repeatedly and you're trying to stay alive. Somehow, through this scenario, you manage to get to 8 power. Then, on your turn, because it is a slow spell, you are able to play Vicious Rejuvenation, turn your 2, 3, 4 health over to your opponent, stealing their 25 health, and then able to swing in with your evasive unit to win the game. That is best case scenario. Worst case scenario, both life total, or this card just sits in your hand and you're nowhere near getting to 8. Or even swapping life totals just delays the inevitable, maybe gives you 1 or 2 extra draws, but you still get crushed by your opponent's board state. What else? What's another great scenario? You guys are both racing, so both life totals are low. So this is like pay 8, gain 3 life. Yeah, no. Vicious Rejuvenation, you're an F. Sorry. You're constructed, you have some very good play, but in limited, you are sadly an F, and you should not play it. But that's going to do it for Shadow. Definitely hot and cold Shadow, I feel like. A couple C's, but a lot of F's and a whole lot of A's. Shadow has some really, really strong fire, or powerful legendaries and rares. Super excited to play with those for sure, if I should be so fortunate enough to play with them, especially Airmot. Oh man, Airmot just seems amazing to me. Alright, our final color is going to be fire. And first up we have Akko, Inspired Artist. This is a 1/1 Oni at legendary for 1 and a red. Okay, seems kind of Oni-ish, but let's continue. Mastery 1, play a +1/+2 weapon on Akko. So once again, we're seeing this little chain of like 1 drops that become 2 3s. So once again, still kind of tough. It doesn't look as good as it seems because of the fact that on the draw, there is a chance that your opponent will play a 2-drop, and then Akko is just stuck like Chuck. On the play, then you have a chance of sneaking in there and making him a 2-3. So that is a bit of a thing. Plus, you also have to have it in your opening hand. Drawing this guy late doesn't seem exciting. And Mastery 9, units and weapons in your deck get a +4/+2 and Overwhelm. So that's super strong. +4/+2 and Overwhelm to your entire deck full of weapons and units in your deck. Like, that's really good. Like, all of a sudden, like, let's say you had a 2/2, right? Well, that 2/2 is now, it's still a 2 cost, but now it's a 6/4 with Overwhelm. Seems extremely good. That being said, though, Mastery 9 is not easy to come by. You definitely need to finagle some combat tricks and pump spells and things to get there in a reasonable time frame, especially Akko potentially only being a 1/1. Overall, I see the potential power, but I think the majority of the time he's just gonna be too small to tussle. And really, best case scenario is, like I said, you're on the play and you get him on turn 1. He becomes a 2/3, and then you can add some pump spells to him. But yeah, overall, I think just the 1/1 body is just too inconsistent and too vulnerable for me. So Akko, Inspired Artist, you're gonna get a D. I think some people will be able to play it and make it work, but yeah, I mean, once again, it's a 1/1, and then so you really want it early where your pump spells can get over the other units. If I'm on the other side, if Akko is on the other side and he attacks, I'm going to block him with the biggest unit I have because you just don't want him to start getting his mastery going. So yeah, Akko, you get a D. Next up, we have Kazan, Darkheart. She is a 1/5 Oni Rogue at legendary. Oh, phenomenal artwork. 3 cost, red. So 3-drop, that's a 1/5. That is a roadblock for sure. I know very few things that can attack through this, especially in the early game. But there's some additional text. When you play a dragon with a name you don't already have, create and draw a treasure trove. Okay, So you have a chance of getting some card value out of this. I like that. Most cases, I mean, unless you have a teething whelp, which comes sadly down before Kazan, you're going to be paying a little bit for these dragons, right? I think the earliest dragon you can get is a 5-drop, but still, you're getting a treasure trove that can draw you a card later. I like that. Mastery 3, play a 4/4 Cinder Dragon with flying. So you play it. This is right up my alley. I think Cousin is a solid B. Reason being is she's going to be able to block fairly well. Attacking, she's very susceptible to double block, so that is a thing. You have a couple combat tricks, but she gives you card advantage somewhat by just staying on the board, and one pump spell will get her to the dragon, and then you get a 4/4 flyer for free. Like, it plays it, doesn't draw it, it plays it. So that's really good. So yeah, Kazan, Darkheart, you get a B. I like it quite a bit. And if your opponent uses a trick to kill her or whatever, like, shoot, she's a 3-drop. Like, okay, cool. Moving on, we have a Draconic Ire. This is a slow spell at rare for 3 and a red. Kill an enemy attachment, then deal damage equal to its cost to the enemy player. And it's the bargain card for fire, so you're able to play out of your market should you hit the enemy player with a dragon. Oh my god, a Durgan! So yeah, this card is good. I think it's fine. It is a slow spell, so you're not going to be able to do some combat shenanigans like removing a curse from one of your units and then blocking with them when your opponent didn't suspect it, or breaking a weapon and then blocking one with a larger unit. None of those shenanigans are going to happen, but I think this card is fine. It is serviceable. This is a curse and weapon and relic weapon, or relic curse, cursed relic. There you go, cursed relic. Synergizing format with Primal, Shadow, and Justice all being into that. So that is something to consider. There are plenty of curses that do not kill the unit. So, and yeah, it plays well against Inflict Conscience, where you typically don't attack or don't do anything with the unit, hoping to get one last block before it dies. So this can buy it time till you get Draconic Ire out and destroy that. So I think it's fine. Paying 3 for it though, it's pretty interchangeable. I think it's just a C-. In this format and more than others, you have uses for it, and things like Unmake and stuff do see play, but you're not super excited to play it, but you're also not horrible for playing it. Yeah, Draconic Ire, you get a C-. It could be a D+, because like I said, the time version is fast speed, but meh, I think this is fine. This card is completely serviceable. Next up, we have a Mage Breaker. This is a +3/+2 weapon, relic weapon at rare for 3 fire. And Mage Breaker has Spellcraft, so you could play it for 3 and then pay an additional 2 when you play it to play Unexpected Results. Unexpected Results is not only the name of a great podcast you should tune into with Platypus King and the Madsen Band, but also a 4-cost spell that reads, transform all copies of a spell of your choice from the enemy player's deck into firebombs. So there's some additional value here in the form of the fact that you're not typically going to get too many of a card, but you do get to remove your opponent's best removal spell or combat trick. Sometimes if it's something like a Draw Strength, they may have 2 or 3. If it's something really rare like a Fell Ritual or a Cut Ties, they will only have 1, but you are taking it out of their deck and removing it, so you don't have to, you have less to worry about. That's really strong in of itself, especially it being tacked onto a weapon. So I kind of like it. It's only costing you 2 to play that spell as well. So I like Mage Breaker. I think Mage Breaker is solid. That being said though, the weapon is still just a 3/2, which if Sword of Akaria has taught us anything, it rarely does. It rarely ends up being a 2-for-1, but sometimes it is. So I think Mage Breaker is a solid C. I think you are plenty happy keeping it in or playing it in your deck. Next up, we have the Fire Listener. This is Galai, that's what it was. Jeez, sorry. Galai, Shavka's Listener. It's a 4/1 legendary mystic for a 4 triple fire. Charge is his keyword, and summon, invoke, and then mastery 12 +3/+3 and invoke fire again. Man, so in constructed, I like this one because of the charge. That being said though, it's still just a 4/1, which means it dies to pretty much everything, but it still draws you a card. So if it deals 4 damage to face, then takes out a unit, and draws you a card, that seems like a pretty good rate, honestly. I think there's no reason not to play this card. If you're able to give it some kind of evasion that's super strong, it's still getting in there for a ton of damage. The charge thing means there's a good chance it gets in there at least one time, unless you're a stalled board state, or you're, literally just a stalled board state, pretty much. You can play it late and then leave up a combat trick to help it get in more damage. So I think Galai's a B. The 1 toughness really irks me because there's just so many ways to kill an X1 in this format. So the charge helps, and you are drawing a card, so I think it's still powerful. But like I said, I think it's extremely vulnerable, a little too vulnerable for my taste, unless you're able to slap a weapon on it. That would be nice. You put a Oni Warhorn on it. That seems solid. I like that. A 6/3 seems significantly stronger and better to, or easier to keep alive. So Galai gets a B. Moving on to the home stretch, guys, we have Harmony of Flame, which we did talk about when we covered the site on this podcast. So I'll touch on it very lightly just again. Once again, Harmony of Flame is a rare slow spell at 4 fire. You get a +1, excuse me. You get a +1 power this turn for each of your units. Reduce the cost of each spell in your deck by 1. Notice it does say each spell again, so it is only spells, not units or sites or weapons. I think it's okay. It's a little bit of ramp, but I just don't. No. I think attached to a site, it was okay, but on its own, it's not a card you want to put in your deck. Some of you will put in there if you're like some kind of like Praxis or tokens, right? It has to be Praxis because this is fire, and then the Xulta cards come from, yes. So yeah, it is a, well, I'll give it a D. It's fine. I really don't want to see you guys play it, but some of you will play it. Some of you will ramp with it to ramp out something cool, I guess, in a stalled board state. But even then, what the use is that doing? Yeah, no, it's an F. It's an F. You really just don't want to play this card, guys. Like, just seriously. Maybe even the Spells Matters deck, like you're not gonna have enough units for this to be a really good ramp. So yeah, no. Next up we have Tota Colony. This is a 2/6 rare Totemite. It's 4 red, and it reads Mastery 4, create and draw 4 0/1 Totemites. Okay, so not bad, gives you a bunch of chump blockers, but there's more text. Mastery 6, so 1 more blocker attack. Each unit and weapon in your hand gets a +4 attack and overwhelm. Now we're talking. This card is a pretty good bomb. 2 attack is not much, but 6 health means it will block very well and occasionally attack very well. And then right off the bat, on its own, nothing doing, it will make you 4/4/1 overwhelm Totemites. That is huge card advantage. It sits there and it could just block. That is fine. If you sandbag a unit or 2 or a weapon, then that makes them extremely better, like a huge upgrade to a weapon. If we go back to, like, for example, the Mage Blade, or shoot, let's say your Stone Scar, and use this with the Spectral Scythe. Now the Scythe is a 6/3 that has unblockable. Yeah, I could see the upside to this. Obviously, that is Magical Christmas Land. Baseline though, it's still a 2/6 for 4, which can come up the ground quite well. And if you aren't able to get the second mastery off, it still made you a bunch of chump blockers to buy you some more time. So yeah, I like Tota Colony. I think it does a really good job of helping you when you're behind, or, you know, installed board state, it does a little less because you can't attack into it. They're probably not going to attack into you. But, you know, development, I think it's great. Development has a higher chance of triggering its mastery and its, you know, stuff. Or yeah, just mastery. So yeah, I kind of like Totemite in a racing situation. The 2 power is not that great, but once again, it can block really well, so that's kind of relevant as well. So yeah, I like Tota Colony. I think it is a solid B, because you do have to get mastery and your opponent can't play around that a little bit. So I think that's what's stopping me from giving it an A. But yeah, I think it's a solid B for sure. Maybe B+, maybe even B+. All right, next up we have Stone Smelt Dragon. This is a 5/5 Nightmare Dragon at rare for 7 triple fire. It has flying, big surprise. And then summon, kill all enemy relics. Okay, that seems a little less exciting, to be honest with you. But there's some more text. because it says relics and not attachments, so it's not going to kill weapons or curses. So, but once again, stone smelting kind of works. Oh, it's melting a waystone. That's sad. Aren't those things like super powerful? Anywho, pay 7 to give Stone Smelt Dragon a +7 attack this turn, making it a 12/5 flyer. Yeah, if you guys remember the 7/4 uncommon dragon, that thing ends the game fairly quickly. This guy is going to end the game in short order. Of course, you have the 7 to play it, so you have the 7 to pump it next turn. Of note, it does not have Overwhelm, so it could be chump blocked, but 5 health is hard to interact with for the most part. It will take up your entire turn, but I mean, their chances are, unless they answer this, you're going to end the game pretty quickly. A 5/5 flyer is a really good size as well. I think I'm going to give it an A-. I really do. It's going to have a potential effect of getting rid of relics, right? Sometimes that's going to be important, but the 5/5 for 7 is just a smidge high, but the fact that the very next turn you can almost pretty much kill your opponent means that, like, yeah, I like cards that can close out the game very quickly. It will stabilize you in the air. Once again, 5/5s is huge. Pretty much the only thing that might be able to tussle with that is like a draw strength. So I do like it. I'm giving it an A. I think Stone Smelt Dragon is a solid pickup. 7 is a lot. It is, but you can somewhat cater your deck a little bit towards it, and the fact that it's not just going to dirtle around, it's going to kill your opponent quick is huge. And I like it, so I'm giving it an A. Last and final legendary of the review is Spear of the Dying Sun. This is a +10/+4 relic weapon at legendary. Jeez, they like the swingy cards here. It costs 9 though. 9 fire. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and give it an F. Right now, 9 for a relic weapon. Yes, it's 10, but yes, it's 4 toughness or hell armor. So chances are it's not going to survive very long. Enemy players can't gain life. Okay, yeah, that comes relevant. Combustion Brawler has taught us that. Spellcraft 5, so 14 total. Play Decimation. Decimation obviously is a non-negatable, or wait, I think you can negate it, but it's not. It goes through Aegis. Nope, it can't be negated. Correct. Deal 10 damage. Decimation can't be negated or blocked by Aegis. So yeah, if you somehow make it to 14 power, maybe using the Harmony of Flames, you can play a 10/4 weapon, relic weapon on yourself that can't get through your opponent's unit, and then put Decimation their face. So yeah, just an F. Straight up F. It's more for the lulz and the memes. So Spear of the Dying Sun, sadly you get a dying grade with an F. But that is going to do it, guys. Fire seems pretty medium. Nothing that really stood out to me is absolutely broken. Nothing that was, well, I mean, I guess a couple of horrible cards. But yeah, overall, Fire was pretty middle of the road, which is fine. That is perfectly okay. Once again, these are rares and legendaries, so you're not going to see them all the time, but hopefully this helps you make a decision on whether you should take one of these rares or legendaries or a premium uncommon. That's going to do it though. Thank you so much, guys, for bearing with this. Hopefully this one was not as long as the common and uncommon one, but once again, I do hope this helps you guys make some decisions on your draft picks, as you know, especially since we're not able to play these cards very often. It's really important to kind of have a good understanding on whether it is worth picking or not. And then of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking it for science and trying out for yourself whether you like it or not. But once again, that is the Flame of Xulta rare and legendary set review. Thank you so much for tuning in to that. And of course, which leads us to our What's the Play and our Constructed Corner before we close out our show. So this week's What's the Play is brought to you by my cube. That's right, Cube 1.2 that we do every Sunday now on live on stream. Come check it out if you are interested. This is a power cube this week, and we are going up against Thalia T. So shout out to her for taking it down, being the only undefeated player that day. But here's the board state. Thalia is at 9 life. We are at 16 life. Thalia has 3 cards in hand. We have 4 cards in hand in the form of Nightmaw Sight Unseen, which is the 7/7 for 7 triple primal, triple shadow. Make all your guys unblockable. A Zenon Obelisk, which is a 4-cost relic that gives all your guys a +1/+1, and then if you have 8 power, it gives them all a +2/+2. Execute, 3-cost, kill an exhausted enemy unit and deal 2 damage to the opponent. And Champion of Cunning, which is the 5/5 for 5 in Feln. When you have 5 primal influence, it gets flying in Aegis. When you have 5 shadow influence, it gives all your units a +2 attack permanently. Okay, they are 1 of 5 power, and they are Rakano, so fire and justice. We are at 8 of 8 with the 1 fire, 1 time, 3 justice, 4 primal, 2 shadow. Mind you, I drafted the Strangers deck, that's why. On the board, they have a 5/4 Kasul Battle Mage, which is the 3/3 with Aegis, and then whenever they play a spell, it gets a +1/+1. So it's a 5/4, I believe, with a weapon on it. Oh, it has the Oni Scepter, the Ronin Scepter or whatever, the one that makes a 2/1 Oni. They have the 3/2 Reckless Yeti Pioneer that has Reckless, and when it attacks, you get additional power. And they have a Rogon's Disciple, which is the 2/3. Whenever you play a spell, it deals double damage. And they have an Oni Ronin. Our side of the board has forgot the name of it now, but the Stranger, the 3/3 Stranger that it gives all your guys deadly. Never mind, easy enough. And just a generic 2/2 Stranger, which obviously has deadly as well now. So I ask you, what's the play? We can play, so the Nightmaw is off the table, even though we are 1 shadow away from being able to play it. We have enough power, just not the correct influence. We can play Zenon Obelisk, giving both our guys a +2/+2 in attack, or +2/+2 and just sit back on defense. We can execute the Pioneer, and we can play Champion of Chaos or Cunning with no additional value, just a 5/5. And then obviously we can attack, we can not attack, etc., etc. So what's your play? From what we've seen in the previous games, Thalia T is a very explosive deck and can pump her guys to kill you out of nowhere. So 16 is not the most comfortable life total. It is okay. Of note as well, the Pioneer will attack next turn forcibly. So they have 3 cards in hand. Chances of them having a trick are high. The Aegis on the Battle Mage is a bit of an issue, but we do have, both of our guys do have deadly. So I think, in retrospect, the correct play would probably have been to either play the Obelisk and stay back on defense. And that was the awkward thing too, is that we're not able to play 2 things in 1 turn. And or play the Champion of Cunning and wait. The execute is not really necessary, because on the board itself we would have a way of killing the Pioneer, either by playing the Champion of Cunning or our units getting a +2/+2 off the Zenon Obelisk. The issue I had with this play is that I felt like it was going to give Thalia T too much time with 2 potential units that can kill us out of nowhere in the form of Battle Mage and Rogon's Recruit. That being said, they are Rakano, so the deadly would probably be quite relevant in removing units. But I ended up being super aggressive for some strange reason, don't know why. And I ended up executing the Pioneer, taking him down to 7, and then playing the Obelisk and swinging, pumping my guys to a 5/5 and a 4/2, because in my mind at some point they were gonna try to double block or something like that. Either way, they took the 7, or they took the, oh yeah, I know what they did. So I executed the Pioneer, they went down to 7, then I swung, and that was probably poor sequencing. I probably should have played the Obelisk and then just attacked. Maybe I did, I don't remember now. But I attacked, and they chump blocked the 5 with the 2/1, the 5/5 Deadly Stranger with the 2/1 Oni Ronin. They took 4, going down to 3, which obviously is not dead. And then on the crackback, they did in fact have a pump spell, giving the Rogon's Disciple double damage and like killed me. So yeah, but that's the play of the week. Do you think it's a little interesting? I will try to incorporate the occasional cube ones in here. Yeah, they had saddle up. Let me just double check real quick. Check the video rule. Just want to make sure that when I attacked, okay, I did execute after attacks, so at least that was proper sequencing. But yeah, guys, that's the play of the week. course, you can catch the video on YouTube, both the cube draft that shows you the entire gameplay, or just watching this podcast on the YouTube has it on screen. And for those of you that are curious, I did look at what cards we were going to draw next, and it was going to be like somewhere about 6 to 8 cards before we were going to find the other shadow influence for the triple shadow influence for our Night Maul to come down, because that was a consideration to wait. But all right, that is going to do it for What's the Play, which leads us into our Constructed Corner of the week. The deck this week for Constructed Corner is once again brought to you by Death3366, so big shout out to him for helping out. And this one is Make Temporal Great Again. The deck is 4 Seek Power, 2 Island's Favor, 3 Ice Bolt, 2 Reread, 4 Blight Pass Smuggler, which is the found one, 4 Display of Knowledge, 4 Great Valley Smuggler, which is the Elysian one, 4 Wisdom of the Elders, 4 Eternity Core, 2 Honor the Claws, 2 In Cold Blood, 2 Malediction, 1 Noble Blade, 1 Staff of Stories, 2 Brilliant Idea, 3 Burr Spore Fern, 1 Gift or Azendel's Gift, 3 Soul's Rest, and 1 Temporal Distortion. The power base is 2 Primal Sigil, 2 Shadow Sigil, 2 Time Sigil, 4 Cobalt Waystone, 4 Crest of Cunning, 4 Crest of Mystery, 4 Crest of Wisdom, 3 Seat of Cunning, and 1 Seat of Wisdom. The market consists of 1 Hailstorm, Passage of the Eons, Vicious Rejuvenation, Channel the Tempest, and Scourge of Frostholm. So on the base level, this deck is a control deck. That means to get Spore Fern, so perfect case scenario, Burr Spore Fern gets into play, triggers the mastery, allowing all your subsequent spells to, for the rest of the game, to copy, right? And is forced, and Burr Spore Fern does not need to be in play for it to happen. So should it die after that, you still get the doubling effect. Then, once again, in a perfect world, you'll have Temporal Distortion out, giving all your spells fast speed, and then play Soul's Rest, which gives you an additional turn at the end of your opponent's turn, giving you 3 turns back to back. This is quite powerful indeed. And let me tell you that this deck is a lot of fun. Death has been revising it. It's been one of his pet projects since the set came out. And finally, this version of it ended up finishing 16-4 across 20 games. The link in the will be in the show notes, where you guys can check out his elaborate and thorough write-up on the deck, discussing matchups and what it's trying to do, as well as what specific cards are trying to do. Excuse me. So once again, it is a control deck, so you are looking to manage the early board states, drawing extra cards, removing threats, and then clearing the board with your removal spells, hopefully eventually landing the Burr Spore Fern, and then triggering mastery. A couple of things to help with this is stuff like the Display of Knowledge that is able to give Spore Fern a +2 attack and quick draw, giving it a 7/5 quick draw, which allow it to get in there. The Display of Knowledge also acts as a tutor effect, being able to help find you those one-ofs of your deck to help with the specific scenario, such as Staff of Stories to draw extra cards against the unitless decks, Noble Blade to stop mid-range decks or Grave Void shenanigans, Azendel's Gift to again battle control decks, and of course when you're ready to go off, Temporal Distortion to give all your spells fast speed. It also acts as a single point target removal spell in the form of putting attacking enemy unit on the bottom of their deck, which sometimes is extremely favorable in most matchups, especially avoiding graveyards. In the market, of course, we have a Hailstorm for aggro, we have Passage of Eons to stop any kind of Exalted or Relic shenanigans. Vicious Rejuvenation is a way to come back in the form of a late game. If your opponent got some early aggression out, you're down to 10, 8 life or something like that, you are able to Vicious Rejuvenation to essentially gain 20 life. Channel Tempest is a card draw engine, as well as a game win condition and a removal spell. And then finally, Scourge of Frostholm, of course, a staple against any control deck. This deck does battle pretty well against control decks because they you just kind of stare at each other, 2 ships passing in the night, and you are able to just develop your board state, and sadly your end game is better than theirs. The fact that Sporefern has Aegis does make it an automatic 2-for-1, which is nice, and it is a big body. When you start taking additional turns, it in and of itself can kill your opponent. So that is a win con of itself. 2 brilliant ideas, because of course being a temporal deck means you will draw a lot of cards and have a lot of power. And so that facilitates that. Eternity Core really helps bridge the gap from 4 power up to 6 to play your brilliant idea. Play your Sporefern is really the biggest one. And then of course you have the combination of Malediction. Now I will say this, there is a 81 card version, I believe, 81, 83 card version that Death said he was seeing extreme success with. So should you be interested in something like that, I do encourage you to reach out to him and contact him to find out what he had and how it played out and what modifications to this deck to make it the version that has worked out well. Of course, there is the additional thing of Soul's Rest. The fact if you are able to play at fast speed, the Decimate, putting each unit into its owner's hand means you're able to reset the clock on your opponent's aggression and things like that. So something to take into consideration. But yeah, the deck is a lot of fun. I do enjoy playing it. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating if you're not drawing, like sometimes you kind of feel like you're just spinning your wheels, but once you get Sporefern off the mastery, oh, you are sitting pretty, because your Honor the Claws draw you 8 cards in cold blood, can break an Aegis and kill the unit. It can kill 2 units. It's just, it's so good. It's a ton of fun. Wisdom of the Elders draws you 4 cards. Hailstorm does 6 damage. The deck is a ton of fun. Vicious Rejuvenation is actually quite potent in this deck because of the fact that you're able to stabilize shortly after playing it, especially if you once again have Temporal Distortion out to play it at the end of your opponent's turn or in the middle of combat. I've done that as well. But overall, the deck is a lot of fun, so I definitely encourage you to check it out. But that is it, guys. That is going to do it for our... What episode is this again? Episode 37, which is our legendary and rare set review of Flame of Xulta. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed slugging through this giant thing, and I've helped your drafts be a little bit easier, a little bit more fun, and a little bit better. Once again, you can catch me live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. You can contact me or stay up to date on stuff with the podcast, both on EJthePodcast@gmail.com or at the EJthePodcast on Twitter. If you care to follow, if you're not able to obviously check out my live stream, you can see most of this content as well as YouTube exclusive content on YouTube. Just search Eternal Journey or EJ the Podcast on the search bar and it should come up. You get draft videos, this podcast, the video version, if you like to visually see the cards, as well as constructive videos like when the ECQs come back. And of course, if you'd like to follow my real life stuff, follow me on Instagram at CaesarLebear7. But that is it, guys. That is going to do it. Once again, thank you so much to all the ongoing subs and supporters of this channel / podcast / stream or whatnot. It really means a lot to me. I really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me and help us all get better at drafting together. You guys are fantastic. I wish you a great morning, afternoon, evening, day, whatever it is you're at. And until next time, guys, happy gaming.